Good evening to our audience, both online as well as those who are live. We've got three separate meetings going on here tonight. We first have a Public Housing Authority meeting. We will then go into the regular City Council meeting. Some of you, I think, are here to speak on that. And then we also have a study session. And during the study session, there are some special appearances, some awards, and things related to that. And we'll be handling those three in that order. So at this point, I would like to call to order our Public Housing Authority Commission and have our city clerk take the roll.
Chairman Hartkey,
Present.
Commissioner Lopez,
Present.
Commissioner Dearman,
Present.
Commissioner Stewart,
Here.
Commissioner McClymans,
Here.
Commissioner Wong,
Here.
Commissioner Rowe,
Here.
Commissioner Orlando.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, City Clerk. Are there any scheduled or were there any scheduled, unscheduled public appearances for the Public Housing Authority?
No, Mayor, I did not receive any.
All right, thank you. So commissioners, we have a number of consent items before us. What is your pleasure? A motion would be in order.
Mayor.
Commissioner Orlando.
Yeah, I move that we approve the Public Housing Authority Commission meeting minutes, agenda item December 7, 2020, items 1 through 4. And Mayor, with that, these are just annual things that we have to do or just recurring activities we had to do. There's nothing really different in here other than just reporting to the federal government how we're going to handle our public housing. So it's good, good stuff.
All right, and second with Commissioner McClymans. Any additional questions or comments related to our agenda item? Seeing none, clerk, please poll the commission.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Dearman, Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner McClymans,
Yes.
Commissioner Wong,
Yes.
Commissioner Rowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Chairman Hartkey.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. And with that, I want to thank you all. That concludes our Public Housing Authority meeting. Next on our agenda is a regular council meeting. I'd like to call that to order. Please take the roll again.
Mayor Hartkey,
Here.
Vice Mayor Lopez,
Here.
Commissioner or Councilmember Stewart,
Yes. Here.
Councilmember McClymans,
Here.
Councilmember Wong,
Here.
Councilmember Rowe,
Here.
Councilmember Orlando.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. For our invocation tonight, we have Susan Stevens Clark from the Chandler Baha'i community. And for our pledge, I'd like to invite Councilmember Sam Wong to lead us in that.
If you join me in prayer, please. O my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal unto them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, leave them not to themselves, but guide their steps by the light of thy knowledge and cheer their hearts by thy love. Verily, thou art their helper and their Lord. Amen.
Please join me with the allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Susan Stevens Clark. Thank you, Councilmember Wong. Council, tonight we have we've got one item currently on action and 7 items that are on consent. We also have a couple speaker cards that are related to item number 8 on this. We've had some 2 items that have been called in. Item number 6 by Councilmember Stewart and Councilmember Orlando, as well as item number 8 by Councilmembers Orlando. So with item number 6, why don't we start with a presentation, and then Councilmember Orlando, you can take it from there. Would this be with our city attorney, I believe?
Yes, Mayor. Okay. Mayor, members of the council, as you are aware, the citizens of Arizona voted and approved Proposition 207, which authorized the legal sale of recreational marijuana throughout the state of Arizona. That proposition comes with a number of regulations and gave the city significant authority in regulating how the sale of recreational marijuana shall occur within the city limits. Consistent with many of our surrounding communities, the ordinance before you proposes to allow recreational marijuana to be sold and an already approved medical marijuana dispensary that obtains a dual license from the Department of Health Services. It further prohibits the use of marijuana products on city properties and city parks and city right-of-ways. And I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought on where. It also precludes marijuana testing facilities from being opened within the city limits. There's a number of regulations already set forth in the law, including not smoking in public and not driving while you're consuming marijuana products or having those products being consumed by passengers in the car. Currently, Department of Health Services will be creating regulations authorizing the dual licensees, and the law does allow for 26 standalone recreational dispensaries throughout the state of Arizona. As I said, many of our surrounding communities have also limited the sale of recreational marijuana to duly licensed medical marijuana dispensaries that obtain a dual license to sell both kinds. And with that, Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions of the council.
Councilmember Orlando, start with you.
Yeah, Mayor. So this will be the third time that we're amending this ordinance, correct?
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, in reality, this is the first time the issue of recreational marijuana has come before the council. The council originally did pass regulations regarding the sale of medical marijuana, and that was amended one time that I'm aware of. So this is our third ordinance dealing with the sale of marijuana.
Okay, so it's a third ordinance in dealing with the celebrate. So it is a living ordinance when we're changing it as things change in our society or as activities occur, correct?
Yes.
And this
Mayor.
could be changed, obviously, by council vote as well, correct?
Yes, and if I may, Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, right now, this is very new to the state of Arizona. We have not seen any regulations from the Department of Health Services yet. They have a period of time to develop those regulations. One of the regulations they will develop will concern the delivery of marijuana, and that there's a delayed implementation of 2 years to allow Department of Health Services to develop regulations.
So at the minimum, we're looking at this at least 2 years from now, or maybe shorter, depends what time they come up with the delivery, correct?
Correct.
All right, so this is a living ordinance, I guess that's my question.
Can be, if I may, it can be amended at any time by the mayor and council.
Okay, so right now, I know we have some dispensaries in the city, some are in the county, but it's incorporated in the city. How many do we have right now?
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, we have one in the city boundaries and we have 3 in the county surrounding our city.
Which incorporates in the geographic location of Chandler.
The
Other
growth
than-
boundaries, I guess, for lack of a better term, but only one within our actual city limits.
So, and then again, just to confirm, the law allows the medical marijuana facilities to go ahead and convert to the recreational activities, correct?
They have to get a license to do so through the Department of Health Services, and I'm not sure where Department of Health Services is on developing those regulations. But if they currently have a medical marijuana dispensary, they can apply and go through the licensing process through the state to sell both types.
Okay, and so, but there's 4 today that could actually just go through the licensing and get recreational.
That is correct.
That doesn't stop that. We'll
Right.
still have 4. We had 4 coming in today. We still have at least 4 coming out of today.
That is correct.
And then if we have a recreational, say, a year from now, when the folks get a chance to look at some of the dynamics of this new law, then we could come back and if a company wants to expand their process or expand their business, they could obviously apply for a permit. Because we're not giving any zoning permits here where we're denying them access, correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, this ordinance would only limit the sale of recreational to an already approved medical marijuana
Correct.
dispensary. So yes,
So if someone came in a year from now or 6 months from now and said, look, we want to do recreational, we could take a look at that and we could say, yeah, that's a great, and we can amend this right now. Again, okay. So,
yes.
So in our surrounding cities, how many do we have in Gilbert roughly and Tempe and Mesa? I'm just curious.
It's going to be very rough. I know Gilbert has one within their town boundaries. Mesa has quite a few, in excess of 20. I'm not sure how many Tempe has. Phoenix has an excess of 30.
Okay, so they're scattered throughout the valley, what you're saying.
That's
Okay,
correct.
got it.
Throughout the state, in fact.
So one more question then. The other thing is the proposition said that only 26 recreation facilities could open up statewide.
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, that would be the standalone recreational facilities. They're only going to allow 26 of those to open up.
Okay, so that seems pretty limited right there. So if you're smart, you probably want to get a medical one and then get the recreational one, right?
You know, I'll defer that to the industry,
just-
how they want to do it.
Just, okay. I mean, it's like liquor license. I mean, they're very hard to get some of these licenses and there's a cost for that, obviously.
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, that is true. And in a year or maybe 2, we'll have an idea of what the Department of Health Services regulations are going to be to allow those standalone.
And I'm open, like I said, I'm open to open this up again and look at it. But right now, I think we're looking at just maintaining what we have, get that off the ground. Then we can look at the distribution. The delivery. We can look at other things, down the road. I'm okay with that. That's what I'm just curious. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Kelly. Quick question. So recreational sales will be allowed in Chandler. That's by the proposition, correct? There was some question about that. There was a newspaper. I got a couple emails about it.
Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, this would allow for the sale of recreational to a medical marijuana dispensary that obtains the dual license from Department of Health Services.
And nothing else. So nobody else will be able to apply for a recreational license to sell in the city.
Under this ordinance, that is correct.
Okay. There is a stipulation in here about using marijuana or consuming marijuana on city property. That's probably more referencing like smoking cannabis or is that anything?
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, that would be any consumption of marijuana products. It comes in various forms.
Can you smoke in city, like smoke cigarettes in city property now?
You cannot.
Okay.
However, the vaping is another form that you can consume tobacco and marijuana products through. And there's question, that is not as expressly prohibited under state law and under our laws.
And then under this, if you were in possession, that doesn't affect anything if you're on city property, right? Based on this ordinance, you can have it in your pocket. You can have it in your hand, as long as you're not putting it in your mouth or smoking it.
Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, that would be correct as long as it's within the legal parameters set forth in the state law.
Okay, and then as relates to penalties, these always make me like nervous. So what do we mean by penalties here?
So under state law, penalties for violations for possession, different things like that, we are limited under the initiative to a petty offense or less. And a petty offense is a criminal offense, but it is the lowest type of criminal offense you can have. Under our code, we don't really use petty offense. We either go civil which is a citation and a fine, or we go up to criminal, a misdemeanor. And so under the ordinance presented to you tonight, any violations would be civil.
Okay, so they'd be civil, which if it was somebody that was economically challenged, but this would be like if somebody was caught smoking, would it include parks?
Yes, it would.
So would we treat this as so this is new territory, so would we treat this as like if you wanted to have beer at a birthday party, would you have to apply for a permit to have, or would this just say you can have beer, but you can't have cannabis?
Mayor and council member, if I may, under this law, we don't have a permit process for cannabis, for marijuana. We do for alcohol. It's limited, and there's protections put in place for that. My legal recommendation to the council would be to wait to see what sort of regulations Department of Health Services issues, and then we may want to revisit that issue. But right now, we really don't know what Department of Health Services is going to do on regulating this new area we're in.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember McClymons, then Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. The discussion, City Attorney Kelly. Okay, so under our current guidelines, for a medical dispensary to come into Chandler, they need to meet certain requirements that are very difficult to achieve, and that was by design years ago when we set that up. Is that correct?
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember McClymons, there are distancing requirements from schools and different facilities and from each other so that we did not have a proliferation of medical marijuana dispensaries in one area.
And under the new law, those medical dispensaries can also deliver recreational, correct?
And under the initiative approved by the voters, after 2 years and Department of Health Services regulations, then delivery is.
No, not delivery. They can sell recreational.
Yes, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. They can sell recreational so long as they obtain the dual license from
Gotcha.
Department of Health.
And so under this, if we pass this new ordinance, we won't allow just recreational to come in, but another medical could come in if they can meet all those setbacks and also sell recreational
Mayor,
dual license?
Councilmember McClymons, that is true, yes.
Okay. But by and large, by passing this ordinance, we've almost created a monopoly for the one entity in Chandler.
Well, if I may, Mayor, Councilmember McClymons, another dispensary, another owner could come in as long as they can meet the requirements. They're licensed by Department of Health Services. They absolutely can come in to the city. They would have to go through the process of meeting the zoning requirements, just like this dispensary did.
So, yeah, so my only question just for council to digest is why, if you allow that to happen, would you not allow that same circumstance to happen for recreational? They still have to meet all the requirements, but why would you not allow one or the other? What is the difference? Just something to digest.
Vice Mayor.
So some of the correspondence that we've received from the constituents has stated that we're violating or somehow usurping the vote on 207. Can you please confirm that this ordinance meets and all the requirements set forth by the 207 proposition, that we are not violating in anything in this code?
If I may, Mayor, Vice Mayor Lopez, the initiative as approved by the voters allows cities to regulate standalone recreational facilities, dispensaries, and even prohibit them. The thing that the city cannot do is prevent a medical marijuana dispensary that has a dual license from selling recreational. So it complies 100% with the initiative as approved by the voters.
Okay, thank you.
Council, any additional comments or questions?
One
Councilmember
follow-up.
Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Kelly, if we effectively vote no on this ordinance, what happens?
If the ordinance is not passed, and someone came in and got licensed through Department of Health Services to sell recreational marijuana. They can pretty much go into a retail area of the town, any retail area of the town.
Except for our zoning, we have a radius around around our facilities, right? We do have that in an ordinance, don't we?
We do for medical marijuana dispensaries,
But not recreation.
But not
So we need to
recreational.
layer that in. If we wanted to vote no on this, we would have to implement that as maybe an amendment or something like that.
Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, if I may, you would have to go through a zoning code amendment, which
Mhm.
obviously is a longer process. We had a short time from the time this was passed, signed by the governor, and now the law is in effect. In order to go through a zoning code process, that takes longer. You have to go through the planning commission, then it comes to the council. But yes, we most certainly could put zoning regulations in place.
Well, I'm glad that you have become an expert as quickly as you have to answer these questions right off the top of your head. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Rowe.
I think just about all of us have spoken on this issue. I'm very comfortable with it because any adult person that would like to get recreational marijuana can go to Chandler or Tempe or Gilbert, and it will be available. So no one is being deprived. And it was passed by the voters, whether you agree with it or not. But we do have a process, and I don't think anybody's going to go without. So I'm good with it. Thank you.
Well, Council, with seeing no additional comments, this is currently on consent. A motion would be in order. Vice Mayor.
So Mayor, I move for the approval of the City Council regular meeting for December 17th, 2020 of all consent items 1 through seven. Seven.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
It's action.
Yeah. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Rowe.
Mayor,
Councilmember Orlando.
I'll be voting no on item 3.
Okay, thank you for,
Mayor.
wait, are there any other comments or with these? Councilmember Stewart.
I'll be voting no on Amendment 6, and I'll be working with the city attorney to work on an amendment to split that out so that we can add the no smoking on city property, but we need to prevent the monopoly. So,
Okay. Councilmember. So we have 2 no's on number 3.
I'm also no on 6. I'd like to work on a plan to create equal fair zoning for both if they meet both.
All right. So any other additional comments? Seeing none, council, please vote.
The motion to approve the consent passes unanimously for items 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7. Item 3 passes by majority, and item 6 passes by majority.
All right. Thank you, council. Thank you, city clerk. Next on our agenda tonight is an action item, item number 8. This is an item that we had delayed from a previous council meeting at the request of the developer. So at this point, we'll have staff make a presentation. We'll invite up the zoning attorney to do the same. I do have a number of cards up here, a few that would like to talk. I have 2 from a Christy Brown and a Debbie Keel. Was this the item that you wanted to speak on? Because on our study session, the item that others are also speaking on is also a number 8 related to special appearances. So for Christy and Debbie, are you both here? Was this what you wanted to speak on? Great. I will add you to the mix on this particular one. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 8 is PLH 200012, the Villages of Chandler. This is a request for rezoning from the existing PAD zoning, which is for office and commercial land uses, to PAD amended for multifamily. PAD is referring to planned area development. It is also a request for a preliminary development plan for architectural and site design. The site is approximately 9 acres in area and is shown here. It is located at the southeast corner of Gilbert Road and Riggs Road. To the north and west, you can see commercial land uses, and kitty corner to this site, you can see an assisted living site. For the remaining surrounding land uses, it is primarily single-family residential and the associated open space. A little bit more about the location and history of the site. It is part of the Springfield Lakes Neighborhood Master Plan. In 1998, the master plan was originally adopted by council as part of a rezoning. The site shown here was called out then for commercial and office land uses. This is the original approved PDP for that site. In white and black, you see the existing Walgreens and bank that are there today. And in color surrounding, that is the subject site for today, you see there were called out office, medical office, and retail restaurant land uses. As part of that previous PAD and PDP that has been approved, these elevations were also approved. These included a building height of 30 feet. Moving on to tonight's proposal, the applicant is proposing to rezone for 108 multifamily units. This equates to 12 dwelling units per acre. The proposed buildings are 1 and 2 stories in height. As you can see on the site exhibit, there are open space amenities, including this open courtyard with ramadas. Along the north, along Riggs Road, is an open outdoor recreational workout area, as well as a dog park. And right at the entrance is a pool and ramada area greeting the residents. Additionally stipulated by Planning and Zoning Commission, this more linear site design would shift a bit. The sidewalks would stagger or become curvilinear, and the building footprints would also do the same to provide a little bit of variation on some of the longer stretches that are shown in this exhibit. For setbacks for the site, you're seeing 45 feet as prescribed by the stipulations from Gilbert Road, 70 feet from Riggs Road, and to the south and east, where they are adjacent to single family, you are seeing a 15-foot minimum setback that are broken up into individual yards. Also, a landscape buffer surrounds that part of the perimeter. Moving on to building design. Shown here, you see the 2-story building. There are only 9 of these units. They're using a variety of materials, including board and batten. Not shown here, but stipulated is also masonry, which will be included on each of the elevations, as well as stucco. For the roof design, you can see they're using front-facing gabled roofs, as well as cross-gabled, a bridge beyond, connecting the 2 or 3 units. They changed from a original parapet style design to include these parapets to be more in line with the adjacent residents after hearing some of their input. They also included, you can see shutters, more sills and molding. There are standing seam metal shed roofs to kind of speak to that rural agrarian aesthetic. The applicant also worked to provide further color schemes to provide more variety to this site. Usually you will see around 3 or 4. They're proposing 6. And then as further stipulated by Planning and Zoning Commission, there will be more facade articulation. Primarily in the rear, there may be a jog of a foot or so to break up those facades. As I mentioned earlier, masonry material will be added to each building, and Planning and Zoning Commission also asked for the front porches to be enhanced or broadened in their width. Moving on to how our adopted long-range plans see this site. The future designated land use is neighborhoods for this site, and pulled from the general plan, the recommendations here allow for medium density, which is 3.5 to 12 dwelling units per acre. This proposal is 12 units per acre. It allows for this density to be considered on infill parcels, which we consider the site to be. between land uses of different intensities, which is the case here, or as part of a mixed-use site or adjacent to commercial land uses and along arterial roads. More specifically, we have a Southeast Chandler area plan. The site is shown here with the blue star. It is called out as a traditional suburban character, which is applied where there isn't a dominant aesthetic. However, the applicant has included certain design features to speak more to the rural agrarian design down there. This plan allows for densities up to 3.5 dwelling units per acre. It does call out that about 2.5 may be the norm, but allows for you to consider higher. It also calls for low profile development. You could say that the 1 and 2 story design that they're proposing aligns with that low profile guidance. And it also calls out that non-residential land uses, so commercial or office, are not desired on every arterial corner. Even further, referring back to the Springfield Lakes Master Plan, here the site is shown with the star, the subject site. To the east along Lindsay, called out in red, is a 20-acre site that was initially zoned for multifamily units. 324 units over 20 acres equated to 15.4 dwelling units per acre. Instead, in 2014, that site was developed with 72 single-family homes. When you look at the entire Springfield Lakes Master Plan area, with the newly proposed 108 units, the aggregate density that would exist would be 2.9 dwelling units. It's a little bit over 200 multifamily units that would be, 200 units overall that would still be reduced from the initial rezoning. For those reasons, staff is finding that the proposal is consistent with the guiding plans. Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval for the rezoning as well as for the preliminary development plan. On the screen here, you see the breakdown of each of those votes. The rezoning was 5-2, and the preliminary development plan was 5-0 with 2 absent. Chandler is lucky enough to have very involved residents. Here on this site, we did get a lot of input from the residents. Attached to the memo is a set of support letters as well as opposition. A few more have been received, and I believe also received by you all through email that were further in support and also further in opposition. Reasons for support include that it appears commercial may not be viable. The land use may be less obnoxious. You're not going to have large dumpsters being picked up. Offices may not stay open late, or offices may stay open later or attract more traffic. And we did get comments that the design they felt was nice, especially after the applicant did make revisions after meeting again with the neighborhood. Reasons for opposition included traffic congestion and density, that these units will be Section 8 housing and an increase in noise, and that the residents would not fit into the neighborhood potentially. As it relates to traffic congestion, as called out in the memo, this would result in a reduction of the average daily trips by, at a minimum, we anticipate 60%. And that's based on engineering statistics, not on going out to the site or taking counts. And the residents will state their comments, and they are referring to a vacant site, which I can understand, but it is important to refer back to the existing approved rezoning. The applicant has shared that they're proposing market rate housing for this site. And as far as outreach methods are concerned, the applicant has met all of the requirements of the city for outreach, and they have gone above those requirements to hold additional meetings via Zoom to answer further questions from the applicants. They also did preliminary outreach door to door for this item as well. So with that, again, Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation was for approval, and I will stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a good presentation. A couple of things that I'd like to clear up. And you said under opposition, it says that it will be, God's sake, will be Section 8 housing. That's not accurate, is it?
The applicant has shared that they're proposing market rate units.
Okay. So they will be used for Section 8 housing?
No, through the mayor, no, they have shared that they're not proposing Section 8. They would be
Okay.
market rate units.
Okay, so that's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. The other thing is that there was just a few homes that were 2 stories. Everything else is 1 story. And the 2-story homes in your diagram are a bright yellow, and they are just backed up to that commercial property. So,
Through the mayor, correct, Councilman. Yep, you can see here the bright yellow. They are adjacent to the existing commercial, as far away from the single family as possible on the site.
all right, so no homes outside of that. They'll all be single home, single level, single story.
Through the mayor, correct.
All right, thank you very much.
Councilmember Orlando.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that question on the Section 8. I appreciate it. That was one of my questions as well. Along the houses there on the south side and the east side, what is the setback there again?
That they, through the mayor, Councilman, the applicant is proposing a minimum 15-foot setback
From the neighborhood house next to,
from the property line to the proposed units.
okay, 15 feet? So how close would that be to the nearest backyard? Is that only be 15 feet then?
The backyards would be,
From the gate, from the walls on the other houses that's facing it, like on the south side?
oh, on the, through the mayor, Councilman, you're asking on the south side of the property line
Right.
on the single family homes. They appear to be about 40 feet or so.
40 feet. And then on the east side, the setbacks are about 40 feet as well?
Approximately, yes, sir.
Okay. And my understanding is, so, and maybe you can't answer, but economic could, what else has been activity, what other activities been in this area for the last, say, 10 years, 15 years?
Through the mayor, Councilman Orlando, recently to the north, we've had commercial development
Mhm.
and
I mean, this particular piece of property.
I am not familiar with
Mayor.
any inquiries at this time.
So I believe the zoning attorney will have that information.
Okay. Well,
City
Mayor.
manager.
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, most recently, I know that there was another look at some multifamily on this site, but prior to that, I don't know, where is Micah? There he is. Are you aware of anything on this property beyond that? No. Okay. Not aware of anything else from our viewpoint on this property.
So again, can you come forward, Micah, or somebody, or economic development? Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
But I do believe that the last housing development proposed with 3-story, maybe 2, 3, or 4 that was
Yeah.
on this. So this is quite a density declination.
So, thank you, Mike, I appreciate it. So obviously, the commercial piece of this is only half or at least a quarter designed here. Why isn't the rest of this filled out?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Orlando, there's a couple of things affecting it from a retail perspective and an office perspective. First of all, in the retail perspective, the trade area is very limiting for it. Obviously, to the south is the Gila River Indian community, which effectively shuts down about 170% of the trade area. So you're limiting customers. The other side of that is the existing retail on the other corners, as the city manager pointed out. So from a retail perspective, that's been one of the challenges. Most recently, it's been a while, but the last time we were approached about interest on this corner was for multifamily product, as the city manager had indicated.
Okay, so one quick question. And when they put these 2 corner properties here, the standalone pieces of commercial property there, was there a implication that something else had been done there? Was there a promise made that something else had been done, or those 2 standalone buildings were on, and that was it for the entire planning process?
Through the mayor, council member, I'm not sure what the entire development looked like when those projects came in to get platted and developed. Yeah, they were on 2 different submittals, it looks like.
Okay, so it wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't a scenario which we've seen a few times throughout our history where the developer came in and said, I'm gonna build these 2 things and then tomorrow or next week we'll get the rest of this taken care of. And the zoning was granted upon that? Or no? Was the
Go
zoning,
back to planning on the zoning
yeah,
history.
was the zoning, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it concerns me from a bigger picture here. We have a couple of cases potentially coming up here, and we've had these cases before. They come in, they say, let me put the commercial piece in, and then we don't hear from them for 20 years later. They want to, and it goes away. Was that in this scenario here?
Mayor, council member, this property, the entire corner was zoned in a master plan that was the entire square mile.
Right.
Then it came through for PDP. When the Walgreens and the bank came through, there was a concept PDP for the balance of it that was approved because we would not support simply just doing a standalone pad and not knowing what was coming. After that, then the color PDP you see on your screen now came through as a separate kind of revision to that PDP. But this was all done at a time when the ideology back then was simply commercial on every corner to capture as many retail sales tax dollars as we could. And obviously that kind of ideology has not played out in the market in the last 20 years.
Okay, and that's what I assumed was going to happen with this piece. So I guess we got to beware. We made make sure we ask them to put the commercial and they put everything at the same time, right?
That is part of the current ideology.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Additional questions before we call up the zoning attorney? Seeing none? Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I seem to have to choose between blindness or wearing a mask, so forgive me. Wendy Riddell with the law firm Barry Riddell, 6750 East Camelback. It's my pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of True Vista and the villages at Chandler. There we go. So this site, as staff has noted here, is about 9 acres at the southeast corner of Gilbert and Riggs. Of course, you see the bank, the Walgreens, and the existing commercial. Staff also noted it was part of the Springfield Lakes Master Plan that was actually approved back in 1998. It's important to note that multifamily was always planned to be a part of that master plan. So when you look at this, you see the portion that's in purple that was always intended to be actually more traditional multifamily at 15 dwelling units to the acre, 324 multifamily units. When Springfield came in, the ultimate planned density was 3.09 or 1,840 units. Well, as we look at the site and how it developed, importantly to your question, Councilman Orlando, in 2008, the Walgreens was constructed. Ultimately, in 2011, the bank was constructed. And then in 2014, the multifamily that was part of the Springfield Lakes Master Plan was actually rezoned to single family. But the commercial property remained vacant. I'm going to steal the punchline a little bit, which staff has already shared with you as well, that even with our proposal here tonight, we are still well below the density that was planned for the Springfield Lakes Master Plan from the very beginning. So as we've been working on this case, and it's been quite a while, pre-pandemic in fact, there were kind of 3 questions and 3 themes that kept coming up. So why not commercial? Why can't this site be commercial? Why put single family attached housing here? And why is this the right plan? So I'm sure this council knows all too well that the original concept was save every corner for commercial, as Kevin mentioned, capture every sales tax dollar you possibly could. And at the time, in the 80s and the 90s and maybe even the early 2000s, that made sense. But the world has changed, even more so today, where having 4 corners for commercial simply doesn't make sense. You have e-commerce. You have, I don't know about your houses, but I go home and it's stacked with boxes outside the door. Less and less people are shopping at brick and mortar stores. Not all 4 corners can be commercial. And in particular, again, as economic development has just told you, that's particularly true here. When you look south of this site, it simply does not have the 360-degree trade area that's necessary for this to be a successful commercial site. That's why there has been no user interest on this site since 1990, 30 years when it first was developed as commercial. No interest in developing the site as commercial. So then you say, why single family rental here? Well, in part, because I've just shared with you, of course, there's no market for commercial. We know that the multifamily was rezoned out of the Springfield Lakes Master Plan. that this proposal actually puts the housing diversity back into this plan. It right sizes the commercial. And again, the ultimate density still stays below what was originally planned for the Springfield Lakes Master Plan. We know it's consistent with your general plan that allows a range of residential densities. It's consistent with the neighborhood's designation. It's also importantly consistent with the Southeast Chandler Area Plan that asks for a diversity of housing types, that specifically calls out single family attached as a permissible housing type. It allows this project to develop in a way that's consistent with the overall density, resulting in an overall density of 2.86, well below the 3.5. Again, meeting the CCAP goals of avoiding commercial at all corners. That's also why we're pleased tonight to have staff support. Staff has been great working through this project with us and have their support because of the Southeast Chandler Area Plan and the General Plan designations. So the proposal itself, we've got 108 units, mix of 1 and 2 bedroom, single family homes, all with private backyards. Modern farmhouse architecture consistent with the agrarian theme in the area, central greenbelt, dog park, pool, lots of really great amenities, professionally managed, gated, secure community. So why is this the right plan? And I appreciate you, Councilmember Rowe, bringing it up. It's the right plan here in large part because it's single story. The vast majority of these buildings are maximum 18 feet in height. It's only when you look to the very center of the project, so where you see that light blue, those are the only units that we are proposing be 2-story. So this is a great neighbor. This is a sensitive buffer between existing commercial and existing single family homes. And we've heard that from members of the community. We've also done a lot of work with your staff and with the neighbors, revising the elevations of this site to give it that modern farmhouse look, so it complements the surrounding community. This will give you an idea of where we started with more of a mid-century modern look to where we are today. Much more consistent, we believe, with the area. Again, the 2-story, which are only on the center of the site. And of course, again, that farmhouse consistent with the agrarian theme in the area. Gives you an idea of what the rendered building looks like. And again, the 2-story only limited to the center of the site. We've also worked hard to develop new signage for this site. So you can see where we started and where we've ended up. And I think also much more consistent with the area. So one of the issues I think this case has brought to light is about the neighborhood outreach. So as I mentioned, we actually started this case pre-pandemic. We started with an outreach consultant walking the neighborhood door to door, actually went out 4 separate times. We sent out a notification letter. We had our first virtual open house. Ultimately, however, we did hear there was a lot of communication that came to the mayor, and we're grateful that you guys were willing to continue the case to give us some additional time. So we actually went out and we created our own website, you're welcome to look it up, where we put all the information about this case. We took that out there, we posted, and I tell you, I can't think of another developer that's done this, but we posted that website on Nextdoor, on Living Chandler. We did everything we could to get that communication out, to share it with everyone. We held a Zoom meeting immediately, and then again, we put it out there on Nextdoor and Living Chandler to hold an additional Zoom meeting. And we're grateful for the folks that jumped on, and we're able to get the correct information to them. I know there's been some criticism from some of the neighbors that that was not compliant, and I just wanted to highlight the fact that not only was it compliant, it actually greatly exceeded the City of Chandler's requirements. We value neighborhood input, we value stakeholder input, and COVID makes it a bit challenging, but we've done everything we could to get the word out. So during those neighborhood meetings, there were kind of 4 topics that kept coming up. Staff highlighted them. They're the same ones I'm sharing with you here. The first we've already discussed, which is the viability of commercial. Again, you've got that reduced trade area. You've got 30 years of never developing as commercial. The other was about the public notice. I've already shared with you how we've really exceeded the public notice requirements. But the other 2 issues were about traffic and about, to say, the profile of our renter. So first, when you look at traffic, when you compare our site to the existing entitlements, It is a significant reduction in traffic. With this project, you will have less traffic than how the property is currently entitled. It will generate, this is in your staff report, it will generate 60 to 76% fewer trips as a result of this proposal. We also were able to confirm that we are along two major arterials that has significant capacity. It has capacity for what we are proposing here today. Simply put, traffic is not a reason to oppose this case. The second one, and I'm trying to be a little bit diplomatic about saying, was about the profile of the renter. But it was, who's going to be living in these places? Is this going to be Section 8 housing? And I assure you, this is not Section 8 housing. That was a significant amount of misinformation that was out there. These types of development are for people that want to age in place, for people who want to stay here and live out here, but can't afford perhaps their own home right off the bat, or have sold their home but want to be able to live in the area and stay where all their friends already are. It's the downsizing baby boomer. It's the young professional that wants a chance to stay in the area. They're single individuals, people out there that aren't super keen to go out and mow their lawn every day and are very grateful to have a professional company that will do it, but have the ability to live in what has the look and feel of a single family home. A newer family, it has shown us they are college educated and they're higher income. Again, this is not Section 8 housing. This is market rate housing. It's folks also where security is very important to them. Again, this is a professional management company. It's got tremendous technology that uses key fobs that records who comes in and who leaves. It has Ring doorbell in partnership with the City of Chandler Police Department. We have strict credit and background checks, and we have minimum 12-month rental terms. There's no Airbnbs. There's no renting this out for parties. These are long-term rents. By the way, we were kind of curious, so we took a look. When you look at the area and you look between 2017 and 2020, I can appreciate why people are sensitive to rentals. There's a significant amount of homes out there that are being rented by Airbnb, VRBO, Craigslist, Facebook, you name it. So we recognize it is an issue, but it is not an issue in this community. This has 12-month minimum rents. So we know who's living here. We know who's staying there. And this is not an issue. So finally, why is this the right plan? Well, it's the right plan because it's a site that has sat vacant for 30 years, still vacant, and it's new investment and new development on that site. It's high quality residential development that fulfills an unmet need in this market. It provides diversity of housing that was always intended in the master plan. It right sizes the commercial in the area. It's a great transition between the commercial and the existing single-family residential. Single story, private backyards, professionally managed, secured community. It's consistent with the general plan, consistent with the area plan. Staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission are all recommending approval. With that, I would respectfully request your approval. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Vice Mayor.
I don't know if this would be a question for you or Christine, but kind of a pseudo zoning question. Where's the next nearest high density residential to this location?
Christine, off the top of your head, I think I have a slide, so bear with me one second.
Outside of the
Springfield master plan.
Yeah. Well, outside of the Airbnb and short-term rental stuff, but yeah. So, where's the next nearest apartment complex? I guess is my simplest question.
I show it about 3.8 miles away as the crow flies.
There's also one on Queen Creek.
It's to the east. Yes, I think that's right.
Would you concur
Chandler
with that,
Heights.
Christine? You concur with that?
That's right.
Okay. All right. So about 3.5 miles away.
3.8.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Orlando.
Can you go back to that slide with the rentals?
I'm confident she can.
Okay.
The other direction. Keep going. They had that. Thank you.
There you go. So those are all registered. You went through the slide real fast. That's why I wanted.
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah. Between 2017 and 2020.
These
we
are
just-
all rentals in that area. They're homes that are being rented out today.
Yeah. I don't know if they were today, but between 2017 and 2020, those were all rental listings that were on the market.
What's the blue and what's the red here? I'm trying to figure out what you're doing here. What's the color code here?
I believe the difference was ones that were open for rent now or were already rented.
And the ones that are blue?
The ones that are blue are open to be rented. The ones that are
Open.
red are already rented.
Okay, got it. Okay, so there's a interesting proliferation of rentals in that area. I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Council, any additional questions for Wendy Riddell?
Mayor,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry, I apologize. When we first met, I asked you about why not townhomes in this area? Why not, a home ownership area? Why not single family homes? And I know you had an answer at the time, but I wonder if you had another answer or something similar to why not for sale? I mean, why not yet for purchase?
So
Which
certainly,
may turn to rentals anyway, based on this chart, but I mean, no, I'm just kidding.
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, it's an excellent point. They do seem to. I think primarily because we see such a need here in the area for people that are fond of the area that want to stay here and maybe can't make that initial payment to buy a home or buy a condo. And so this gives them the opportunity to do that. And again, we think this is a great hybrid product because it has that look and feel. It is an attached home, but it is still a home and allows them not to have to make that very large upfront payment, but still be able to enjoy living in a home and staying in the area.
And roughly, what are the monthly rents on these things?
You know, it's everything from, I think, roughly 1,200 to 1,800. Yeah, they're nodding yes, so I think.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, so thank you, Wendy. I'll give you a chance to recome after the readdress after the speaker cards. if you
I would
could.
appreciate that, Mayor. Thank
All
you.
right. I have 5 speaker cards, and I've just put them in alphabetical order. And I will call your name up. You will have up to 3 minutes. On the days, there is a series of lights, green, yellow, red. Please keep your remarks concise. Please don't reiterate or just repeat what someone else has already said. We've gotten that input. So first, I would like to invite up Peggy Bilston. Please again state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Peggy Bilstein, and I live at 3615 East County Down Drive in Chandler, in the beautiful community of Solaro. I want to begin just by thanking you for your service here. I was blessed to serve people in District 3 for the City of Phoenix for 14 years, and sometime as Vice Mayor. And I know how challenging it can be. I can't imagine what it's like to do this during the pandemic. And I have to tell you, I never thought that I would move from the city of Phoenix. I love that city. And grandchildren just have this effect on you that you'll go anywhere. So when our son and daughter-in-law had grandchildren here, we moved to Chandler. What a beautiful city. I just want to really congratulate y'all. But as we live, as in the community we live in, it is really special. But the property there by the Walgreens, it has been vacant for some time. All kinds of shenanigans, you know, just the dumpsters and things like that. I really welcome this development. After I left the city council some years ago, our daughter and son-in-law were called to plant a church in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And my husband and I left to help them as they were in the process of adopting a little girl from Uganda. And there was nothing like this there. And we ended up living there for almost 5 years as we helped them with our other 4 grandchildren there. And we looked and we looked, and the only thing that was open to us was to rent a house, full lawn, all the care. My husband's disabled. I cannot tell you how nice it would have been to have a property, have an option like what is going to be done here. I love the property. I love the fact that they took so much input as far as the height, what it's going to look like, the security. And I think it's for regular folks, folks who are like myself and my husband who are retired, didn't want the upkeep of a big house, but love the personal commitment to not only safety, but what it looks like, the dog part, just so many things involved. I know that you've heard so much, but I just want to just say how supportive I am of this project, and also want to wish you all the best as you continue to govern during this crazy time. So thank you.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for my campaign to call the area Greater Chandler. Next up, I'd like to invite Christy Brown. Again, Ms. Brown, if you can please state your name and address, and you'll have up to 3 minutes.
My name is Christy Brown. I reside at 3079 East Hazeltine Way in Solera, Chandler, Arizona. Good evening, and thank you for your opportunity given us to speak towards this. I first wanted to kind of address the timeline. The applicant's first submission was in February, and then in August, they had resubmitted 3 times after the initial. They mailed, as they said before, to registered neighborhood organizations and property owners within 600 feet of the project, and invited people to do a Zoom meeting. Only 1 response to that letter was received, and only 5 people attended the Zoom meeting. 2 months later, on 9/21 and 22, the first public city mailed notices were sent out to the same list. It consisted of 114 homeowners, 38 RNOs within that 600 feet limit. The meeting was published once in a newspaper, and 2 public notice signs were erected. Our point is that the applicant had from late 2019, when they said they started public outreach, or 7 months from their first submittal, before any hint of this project reached the general public, we the taxpayers, on the 21st and 22nd of September. We, the taxpayers and affected neighbors, have had a total of 11 weeks up to tonight to talk it up, to learn about it, to find out what was going on. We kind of feel like this project slipped in under the dark of night during a pandemic, when many of us in 55 plus communities, which Solera is, have hunkered down, and during a time of year that many of those part-year residents aren't even in the state. You talk about the master plan for Springfield Lakes, and a lot has been said about that and the changes that were made. In addition to the property at Lindsay on the southwest corner that was rezoned from multifamily to single-family residential, the parcel across from it was originally commercial, and it was also converted to single-family residential. So we're looking at changes to that master plan. We don't think it's a good fit. We feel like it's being developed because, yes, it's stayed empty for many years. The original design in that master plan called for that parcel to be commercial and retail. We would like it to stay that way. By developing the Walgreens and a bank without having someone have to do the rest of the parcel,
And
you kind of
please finish up.
You set it up for failure. Certainly that's not our fault, but it's poor planning. Your P&Z map shows 15 sites that are very near this.
Ma'am?
And there are 10 of them that have been rezoned from something else to single-family residential. And
Thank
it sticks with your CCAP plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Sarah Emerson. Again, you have 3 minutes. Is Sarah here?
Mayor Hartke,
Yes, ma'am.
Sarah had to leave. She's in support of the project, but she had to leave.
Okay, Sarah Emerson is in support of the property. She had to leave. Next, I have Caitlin Golsvig. Again, if you would state your name and address, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Caitlin Golsvig, 2830 East Riviera Place, Chandler 85249. That's in the Cooper Commons subdivision. So I grew up in this area. I've lived here since about 2006. So I've seen the growth and expansion that this area of Chandler has seen. I've grown to love this area. However, as we've heard, that piece of property has been a dirt lot ever since I can remember. My dad dropping me off at middle school at Santan Junior High School, dropping me off at high school at Basha High School, commuting to college and now commuting to work. That property has remained a dirt lot. So as a young professional, as I mentioned, I love the area. I've grown to love the area and I'd like to stay close to my parents. However, there isn't an option for me as somebody who doesn't want to buy a home. Home ownership comes with a lot of responsibilities, maintenance, upkeep. There's a lot of financial demands, and I'm not ready for that. So when I saw that this project was being proposed, I was very excited because this is exactly what I'm looking for at this point in time. So I'm in full support of this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And the last of our speaker cards, Debbie, pardon me if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong. Kale, thank you. I apologize. State your name and address, and again, you have 3 minutes.
Debbie Kale, 3069 East Hazeltine in Chandler, 85249. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to speak. I am in opposition to this rezoning and this proposed project. And after 6 weeks, my opposition is as much about the decision or the process for this decision as it is about the decision itself. I understand you have a job to do. You have tough decisions to make. We appreciate the 30-day continuance that you gave us so we could get more feedback from our neighbors. But after engaging in the discussion regarding this whole process, it seems to me there's a breakdown in the methodology. The majority of residents, this is what I've learned in the last 6 weeks, the majority of residents affected by this proposal have largely been excluded from the conversation. My neighborhood has been referred to, and I live in Solera, has been referred to in various documents as follows. The master plan refers to a 1 square mile area. The Planning and Zoning Commission agenda from October 21st refers to us as Solera, formerly Springfield Lakes. And the first page of the applicant's proposal only refers to Solera, or to Springfield Lakes and Lone Tree Golf Course to the east. It does not mention the 1,149 houses at Solera, which surround the Lone Tree Golf Course. So the implication is that Solera was not part of the conversation. In the outreach and notification efforts, the list used to send the notifications announcing these proposed changes is very inaccurate. The Solera HOA Management Company was not included in this process. The notification letters for Solera were mailed to the Springfield Lakes Property Owners Association. That's not Solera. Even if that notification went to our management office, it probably was ignored, or I don't know what I would have done with it, but it was misaddressed. Solera became a standalone independent HOA somewhere in the 2004-2005 timeframe. The Maricopa County website for the assessor's office shows it as the Solera Chandler Homeowners Association. But 5 of the 7 notifications that were sent to Solera residents, the board of directors couldn't verify them because they didn't know any of the people. So I believe that the process is highly inaccurate, and I would surmise that would apply to other neighborhoods as well. I think somebody should be in charge of making sure that information is accurate. Feedback from the people in my neighborhood and the surrounding area repeatedly stated that we do not believe we are being heard. In our own informal outreach that started October 21st, we obtained 103 in-person signatures and over 1,500 signatures in an online petition that had opposed this decision. And the biggest concerns were that apartments represent transients. That's a safety concern. There's a concern over the potential impact on property value. And the concern for the apparent disregard of what we have to say as people who live in the neighborhood. We've been told that there are no traffic issues, there's no concerns. There are going to be huge traffic issues with people going across Gilbert Road to get into Albertsons without going to the light, or across Riggs to get into McDonald's without going to the light. People are frustrated at not being heard. The Silk Stocking neighborhood was allowed to keep their multifamily units out of their neighborhood.
Debbie?
Every neighborhood should get to make that decision for themselves.
Thank you. And I do have one more comment card. Apparently someone had filled out the incorrect card, but they had wanted to speak, and that is Ursula Johnson. Again, if you please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Sorry for that confusion. I thought I filled out the right card. My name is Ursula Johnston. My address is 2265 East La Costa Place in Chandler, 85249. I also want to disclose that I am a Cooper Commons board member, and that the due diligence that was presented didn't happen. I just found out about this situation, and I'm in the neighboring community just by accident on next door. So I really wish somebody would have knocked at my door just one time, because I would have, we're a proactive community and proactive residents. I've lived here since 2004. So I'm in opposition to this project, mainly because we're talking about a dense population. If you run the numbers and if you have common sense, you can see that this is not going to fit with the aesthetics of our community as it is. So I think we all agree that it's a dirt lot and we don't want it to be a dirt lot anymore. That's fine. But to pack people in, this is nothing better, nothing more than a proposed mobile home unit that's just not mobile homes. You can look from the design itself. Where are the parking? Where are people going to park? There are like no parking spots. So 108 units, you got to think you're going to have 108 vehicles that are going to park. Where are they going to park? If they can't find parking spots there, they're going to be a problem in the neighboring areas. And so anyway, I just, things like words like stewardship in relationship with residents comes to mind. And so I would ask that of you guys. If you look at the past, with the Walgreens that is closed, it's been closed for how many years now, at the other corner of Riggs and McQueen. So, there's obviously something that was missed in the planning, that we have overbuilt and not built properly. So I ask you, I sent you all an email. I would ask you to please table this for now. There's a lot of emotions around it right now. We've got COVID to deal with. There is a lot of distrust, and it's not fair to us citizens who it did come. I've been feeling late about this ever since I found out about it, because I would have stepped in and let's come together and let's find a solution for this that works for everybody. So I would ask you to please table any decisions at this point. Don't accept this idea. It's not right for our community. And let's come together, put together a task force. I'd be glad to lead it, and come up with something that's going to be a win-win for all of us, and not just a win for the builder, because this is a win for no one but the builder. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Friedel, would you like to address any questions that were raised by them, or then we'll have some dialogue on council?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. I hope that this council knows that we really have taken the outreach here very seriously. In fact, Ms. Johnson herself was kind enough to follow us on Nextdoor to recommend a month ago that everybody come to the virtual neighborhood meeting. So the word has certainly been out, and we have been endeavoring very hard to make sure that we're communicating with all of the stakeholders. So with that, we respectfully request your approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So let me start with a question, then we'll work down. Ms. Andrews Ms. Ursula Johnson, I'm sorry, I apologize, had brought up a parking question. What's the parking capacity in this development, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, we're exceeding the city requirements. I believe it's 196 spaces required. We're at 197. So we're more than properly parked.
So that's about 1.8-ish, I guess, per house. Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Wong.
Mayor actually asked my question already, but would you like to show us where are the residents going to park? You say you have more parking space required, so where is it?
Give me just a moment, Councilman. I'm going to get back to my presentation.
Sure.
Probably the easiest graphic to see it. So when you see here, there is a mix of both garages, covers, as outdoor parking as well. That kind of lines everything you see in the gray. So you see the covered parking where it's called out, as well as the open parking. And this is what makes up the parking for the community.
So are they
Right through here.
okay?
You mentioned garage parking. Which ones are garages? Does it designate? Or
It
does
does.
every unit have a garage? I'm sorry.
So units have garages as well, and then they can take down additional spaces depending on the number of residents or the size of the units. So you see the garages through here.
So you are saying each unit have their own parking and also they have outdoor parking too?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Huang, yes.
Would you mind show me in the picture, in the design?
So the
maybe,
parking is everywhere. You have parking here, parking
okay,
all the way along here,
yes.
parking all the way along here.
And
all
you
the
have
way
any, do you have any garage, I mean indoor parking?
along. We have garage parking. So if you look down here,
Mm-hmm.
you see that these are garages.
Okay, so it's not just
They're not attached, perhaps that's
okay.
confusion.
Yeah, that's my question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions or comments for the developer? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. So, we've got fears about Four Corners and being over retailed. Like, who knew 15 years ago, pre-Amazon, what was going to happen, the retail apocalypse that's coming on right now? Perfect case in point, maybe this is addressed to council, is Walgreens closed. I mean, there is high dollar homes around that area and there's a Walgreens every other corner that can't support that Walgreens, which leads me to believe that commercial is not the right choice for this particular area. That doesn't necessarily mean that high density is either. Did I hear from staff that this is a medium or a low? What was the density on this?
12 to the acre.
12 to the acre. And what's that neighborhood just right around there? What is the density for that? Do we remember? Is it 3?
Well, overall, when you put it all together, you're at the 3.
Yeah, and that includes the parks and the golf course, yeah?
Correct.
Okay, got it. So two things that I wanted to address that I'm interested in. I think that we're recurring, and this might not be the right time for this, so I'm going to get it out anyway, that we're recurring hearing these themes of notification being lax as it relates to the neighborhoods around. I know we do our due diligence, but maybe in this change to a more of an electronic format of, and this isn't maybe necessarily for you, but for staff, that we need to take a deep dive into what our notification requirements are for surrounding neighborhoods. I know we right now do double the state required notification, which is phenomenal, but I think maybe we need to maybe do a study internally and figure out how to do that a little bit better, City Manager.
Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, Council recently approved some code changes that actually included requirements for social media and such. It was probably after this project was already underway, but that has already been codified by Council for projects going forward.
Well, thank you, City Manager, and it does seem like it missed this one. Wendy, I agree with the resident as it relates to aesthetics. This is the southeast area Chandler plan. If you look around the neighborhoods, they have grand entrances. Is there anything that we can do, and maybe you can work with staff and stipulate something for the next meeting that really beautifies that entryway and make sure that those setbacks are beautiful and it fits within the community the way it's supposed to be?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, we would be happy to do that. Certainly the intent here is to have a grand entrance that's representative of the quality in the area, and we're happy to work with staff to make sure that happens.
And Derek, you don't have to get up, but can we make sure that that happens?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to see the email and the follow-up on that, on what's going to be done before, hopefully before Thursday, if this moves forward.
To include you.
Thank you.
Councilmember McClements.
Wendy, one quick question. So 12 units per acre, are the average lots about 3,000 to 4,000 square feet?
So Mayor, Councilmember McCombs, keep in mind they're not lots because it's rental products, so it's
Mhm.
not actually platted. So it's really just one lot.
But don't they have backyards that are separated?
They do, but we don't actually plat them or lot them. So I don't know. I'd have to look to my team to say if we've looked at the units, including the backyards, what that square footage is. And the units themselves can be anywhere from 800 to 1,800, and then you add the backyards, you're probably ballpark 3,000-ish.
Well, if 43,560 divided by 12 is 3,630. So I don't know how you break it up, but
Understood.
okay.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. We're on the same plane.
I went to law school to avoid all math, but I'll.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The human calculator.
All right, council, any additional comments for Wendy Riddell? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, what's your pleasure? Councilmember Rowe.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just one final comment for the folks that are here on behalf of this project and for those of you that are against the project. I commend you folks. I mean, it is, you're taking time out of your lives to come down here and try and make sure Chandler continues to be a great community. It is, and it is deep within the thought of our, the developers, hopefully, and certainly within this council and the mayor to try and make sure that we get projects that keep Chandler the great city that it is. So while I do support the project, I commend you all. I've seen so many, because I'm a retired Mesa Police Sergeant, I've spent my time at apartments and I know people's concern about them. But when I think about multifamily and this project, it's one that I really feel is one of the better projects that I've seen for Chandler. So that's my statement.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So my statement also, I want to reiterate what Councilmember Rose said. Whether you're for it or against it, coming out and doing your civic duty and letting us know where you stand, we always enjoy that. We always want to listen to our constituents, and we do hear you. Again, no matter where this may fall or where we vote, everyone up on this dais holds everything you say to heart, and we do listen and understand. Sometimes we may disagree, and sometimes we agree. For me, this project came in with a couple of strikes against it. A lot of multifamily coming in, and south of the 202 to me is not very popular, not just our constituents, but with me. And also changing of zoning from employment, away from employment into residential. But every case must be looked at case by case. So with that, I looked at as I asked, I kind of drove around. I do live close to the neighborhood also. There aren't any other apartments and multifamily around this location. You look at the diversity that we all ask about and affordability. As was talked about one of the presenters, there's a lot of houses, very nice houses, and there's not a lot of diversity in housing in this area. It's a very nice project, being gated. Looking at the other developments around it, again, with the assisted living on the northwest corner, this also provides a little bit of options available to them. So I was on the fence for very long on this project, but in the end, to me, this is what is intended when we look at for diversity of housing, diversity within our community, and also again, a project that's going to meet and the developer, I handed really positively to the developer and the architect in being flexible and talking and listening to the citizenry and making some changes. The outreach you did in social media, again, kudos. Again, it's a model that we hope, and again, we've already talked about, as Councilmember Stewart said, to make sure other developers do something similar, because we want to make sure that we try to get as many people involved and advisement, again, overall better product, when we adjust to what the constituents have to say. So for that reason, I will be moving for the approval of the introduction of ordinance number 4944, PLH 20-0012, Villages at Chandler, rezoning of move for the city council to introduce, and trying to read the whole thing, right? Needs my help.
There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I don't have to read the whole thing?
What's that?
Good, thank you. Never mind.
City Attorney, is that sufficient? All right. Is there Councilmember Stewart?
Mayor, I'd like to second. However, I'd like to amend the motion to make sure that we add a stipulation with staff to improve the aesthetics of the entranceways on both Riggs Road and on Gilbert Road, for working with the developer.
Motion maker, is that acceptable to you?
I accept that amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Council, final comments before we vote?
Mayor.
Councilmember Orlando.
Yeah, I've been following a lot of the email trails, and I've been pretty consistent with both the applicants that I met with on several occasions. I'm still concerned about workforce housing. We don't have enough of it, although this is a beautiful project. It's, in my mind, more of the same, just different location, different elevation, but it's not going to the heart of what we're facing in our community today, is workforce housing. And I do not want to rezone this. It is south of 202. So I'm going to be consistent over the last couple of weeks. We've had other projects that I can't support this.
All right. Any other comments? Councilmember McClemens.
One of the things that when looking at this project, I do want to echo Vice Mayor Rene Lopez and Councilmember Rowe as far as ditto in the sentiment of opposition and support of coming out on these case by case as we approach build out. There's dirt that's been dirt since the dawn of dinosaurs that we need to make decisions on, and not all the decisions are going to be easy. I personally live in this area. Lived in this area almost 18 years when my house was being built, Albertsons was being built, and I had different dreams and aspirations on how the rest of the corner would be built out. I dreamed for better than McDonald's, which is coming, or the storage unit, but I digress. Looking at this project, it does make sense for where retail's headed in the trade area that's very limited in our area. The writing's on the wall on how long it's been out there. And this is a nice project. A lot of the adjacent communities are not even gated. This is a gated community. One of the reasons why I asked what was approximate square footage of each lot, just kind of noting what you were presenting, Ursula, was in Cooper Commons, there's some cluster housing where those lots are 3,500 to 4,000-ish. And they're in your own community. And so this also presents a similar type housing product. And again, I did my own research. In the last year, there's been 100 houses that have been rented in the surrounding communities. And so rentals are not the end all to the area. And so for that reason, I am supportive of this project.
All right. Thank you, Council. Seeing no additional comments, please vote.
Motion carries by majority with Councilmember Orlando dissenting.
All right. Thank you, Council. Again, thank you all who came out for this item and others on our regular City Council meeting. With this concludes our meeting.
Mayor, can we take a 2-minute?
All right. Council, do you want to take a bathroom break? We'll come back in 2 minutes.
Second.
Beautiful is the mother, beautiful is the sound. Shepherds gathered round them that first Christmas Eve, and the first tree in the greenwood, it was the holly, holly, holly. And the first tree in the greenwood, it was the holly.
Oh, the holly bears a berry as green as the pine, and the star overhead was a heavenly sign. And the wise men did follow that first Christmas Eve, and the first tree in the greenwood, it was the holly, holly, holly. And the first tree in the greenwood, it was the holly.
Here we come a-caroling among the leaves so green. Here we come a-wandering so fair to be seen. Love and joy come to you, and to you a wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, the holly bears a berry of bright ruby red, and the angels attended that poor stable bed with songs of rejoicing that first Christmas Eve. And the first tree in the greenwood, it was the holly, holly, holly. And the first tree in the greenwood, it was the holly, with songs of rejoicing that first Christmas Eve. And the first tree in the greenwood, it was the holly, holly, holly. And the first tree in the greenwood, it was the holly.
Oh, the holly bears a berry as green as the pine.
We could get our council members up here. I'd like to start our study session. Boy, I was willing to give one slot. I don't know if I. I'd like to call our study session to order for tonight. I see one council member, very good. Clerk, if you'd please call, or, well, I guess we don't need a roll call. I apologize. First on our agenda tonight are scheduled public appearances. And I do have two people at the end that are talking on 5G, and we're going to keep it to the two that had called in advance. So when you do a special call in to do that, it's part of a special item since this is not an agenda item. So we will just have two of our speakers that we will give, again, 3 minutes as per call to others on this particular one. So first, we have some service recognitions. I'd like to turn it over to City Manager. And if Councilmember McClymans, if you would join me up front, please.
Mayor, Council, tonight we have 2 service recognitions. I'll start with police. So I'd ask Police Chief Sean Duggan to come forward and make his presentation.
Well, good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'd like to ask Cassandra Inclan to come forward to recognize her 20 years of service with the police department. So Cassie joined the department back in 2000, and well, she initially worked patrol, where she sharpened her skills and developed a reputation as a very dedicated and talented officer. Her hard work paid off when she was selected to become a detective in the Criminal Investigation Bureau. And while in CIB, she worked in a variety of different investigative units, including family crimes, narcotics, and currently she serves in a robbery homicide unit. Her resume is a diverse record of service and dedication to our community. And besides being a highly skilled investigator, Cassie is well known for taking the initiative to help train and mentor new detectives. And whether serving as the lead detective on a homicide investigation or supporting other detectives with their cases, Cassie is a valuable member of the team, known for demonstrating the highest degree of professionalism and compassion for victims. Along with her long list of primary responsibilities, Cassie also reviews cold case homicides. She scours the cases for possible leads, leveraging modern science and technology, and oftentimes working a case from scratch. And as a result of her skill and tenacious efforts, she has helped bring justice to offenders and closure to crime victims. And in her spare time, Cassie serves as a member of the CLE Board of Directors, where she advocates for the health and well-being of her fellow officers. So Cassie, it's been a crazy year, let alone 20 years. So I just want to thank you for your dedication, your service, and everything you've done for the police department and for our community. And congratulations on 20 years.
Would ask John Knudsen, Public Works and Utilities Director, to make the last presentation.
Thank you, City Manager. I'd like to ask Jermaine Swinton to come forward to receive his 15-year service award. Jermaine Swinton was hired in December 27th, 2005 as a utility systems operator for the wastewater collections division and was quickly promoted to Utility Systems Operator 2 in May 2008. Jermaine was responsible for maintaining wastewater collection facilities throughout the city. In September 2014, he was promoted to Utilities Maintenance Coordinator, overseeing all of the equipment and mechanical systems at the airport water reclamation facility. In 2017, he was promoted and transferred to the Ocotillo Water Reclamation Facility as a Utility Maintenance Supervisor, overseeing all aspects of maintenance at that facility. Through the years, Jermaine has been very connected to the community, volunteering at city events and programs, and has been an active participant in the city's mentoring program. Congratulations, Jermaine, on your 15 years of service with the City of Chandler. You continue to be a valuable asset, and we look forward to working with you for many, many more years. Thank you.
Next on our scheduled public appearances agenda, we have the Arizona Association for Economic Development Best of Arizona Award for Price Corridor. Michael Miranda, share a few words on that. It's a piece of glass you got there.
Pretty cool piece of hardware. So this award, it's the Best of Arizona Award, and it's presented by the Arizona Association for Economic Development. This award is given out like 3 times a decade. So it's pretty prestigious, and it's for the efforts past and present mayors, council members, and city staff has put into preserving and enhancing the economic vitality of the city through our price corridor. So it's a 40-year vision to build out price corridor. We still got work to do out there, but this is really cool to be honored in such a way. So I'll hand it over to you, Mayor. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. You get to hold it. Next, we have the American Public Works Association re-accreditation. John Knutson, come up and talk to us about that. Woo.
If I may, I'd like to ask Liz Denning and Houston Andretti to come down and join us. First, I'd like to thank city managers for their support during this time. It's been a very, very long effort for the reaccreditation process. And particularly, I'd like to thank our two staff liaisons, Houston Andretti and Liz Denning, for their hard work during this one-year effort. In addition to them, we also had 23 practice leaders that represented many, many different departments that participated with us as well in this process. The team was able to align and conform to 597 practices that are lined out by the American Public Works Association as part of the reaccreditation process. The city of Chandler was first accredited in 2004, and today is one of only 4 accredited agencies throughout the entire state. So it's quite an accomplishment. And these two ladies, along with the 23 others in our department, worked through the COVID crisis. They were meeting bi-weekly to accommodate this and to try to get all this work done. Tremendous effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. And next we have the Census Thank You campaign. Is Luis Cardenas Camacho still here? I know he had another, all right. Another commitment that was hoping to speak at Avondale. I don't think that's going to happen. I would like to invite, as part of this committee as well, Councilmember Stewart and Huang to please join us up here for photos. Mr. Camacho, thank you for your patience. Were you able to zoom into the other meeting?
Zooming into your meeting. Your meeting was great, by the way. It's very interesting. So thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, Councilmember Sam. My name is Luis Cardenas Camacho. I'm here with on behalf of the United States Census Bureau to really thank you, your staff, every single one of you. I'm sorry, I rushed from the restroom when you called my name. Every single one of y'all to thank you for all your work and dedication to the U.S. Census Bureau in working to making sure that your residents get counted. It is such a critical operation that happens once every 10 years. This is hard to do with the mask. I haven't had to do this with the mask. This is the first time I do this with the mask. And so we really do appreciate all your efforts in making sure that we count all your residents. One of the things that I wanted to mention for this presentation is one of the huge concerns that we had early on, not just with Chandler, but municipalities across the region, was the fact that the decennial census was going to be online for the first time in history. Very proud to report that we had no downtime on our census website, no data breaches. When we told the residents of the city of Chandler that this was going to be the safest, fastest way to do their census, they really understood that because of your work and getting the word out there. And city of Chandler had the highest response rate they've had over the last 20 years because of your work. So again, thank you so much. Stephanie, do you have the certificates? So again, on behalf of the U.S. Census Bureau, Mayor, council members, want to thank you. Everybody's getting their certificates, so thank you so much.
And Councilmember Stewart, who led this, you want to say a couple words?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much. You know, we had an amazing turnout for our census in 2020, and I want to commend our community for that. And I really want to thank our staff, Leah, Stephanie, Lauren, the folks that really drove the community engagement. And then most importantly, the volunteers, the folks that volunteered on the Census Committee. We have our final meeting tomorrow to kind of recap so this is perfect timing. We have our recap tomorrow. Talk about what we did well, what we'll hopefully put into the notes for the census in 2030. I can't believe I'm saying that. Hey, if we're lucky, we might have a 2025 census the way we're still growing. But I want to thank everybody with staff, everybody in our community especially, and then all of the volunteers for their hard work and dedication to making Chandler's vote count, or census count. So thank you very much.
Did I leave you some good notes since I chaired the 2010 census? They're all in pencil. I shouldn't ask those questions. Okay. All right, let's do a picture. Tell us where you go.
I think that's pretty good.
All right. And our last one up front before we go back is the Center for Digital Government Digital Cities Award. Sandeep Tolakia, our IT director. I apologize for butchering your name again. Will you be leading this part, Matt?
Well, we're going to tag team it, Mayor.
Great.
Sandeep. Mayor and Council, thank you again for the opportunity to present to you tonight. For cities with 250 to 500,000 populations, the Center for Digital Government ranked Chandler 5th nationally for using technology to tackle challenges, enhance services, and strengthen infrastructure and cybersecurity. This award recognizes the talented and innovative staff throughout the city who work day in and day out to ensure Chandler remains at the forefront of service, infrastructure, and technology. Some of the highlights of Chandler's top ranking include measures initiated during the pandemic, our virtual and digital activities provided by our community services, cultural development, and communications departments, the online zoning and permit applications in development services, the online performance dashboards and open data portals to report services, crime stats, and budget information, technology integration for direct communication via text, video, rapid SOS, and other means during emergency calls and response, core technology, network, and security infrastructure to ensure our mobility in the delivery of services, as well as planning for capacity for future enhancements. I'd also like to thank the team that worked on the award application, Kirsten Nold and her efforts to work with IT security, network, and application teams, as well as police technology and communication sections, Stephen Turner and Ryan Peters from the City Manager's Office, Dana Alvidrez with Development Services, Jennifer Honey and Ann Patterson-James from Communications and Public Affairs. So thank you again, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to celebrate this recognition with you.
Thank you. I misspoke, Councilmember McClymans. We do have one more. The GFOA Distinguished Budget Award. Don Lang and the budget team.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Well, I would like to recognize the budget staff this evening and ask that our budget team come forward to receive the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for fiscal year 2020-21. They've waited a while for this. Meet our amazing budget team, We have Matt Dunbar, our budget manager, Julie Belt, senior financial analyst, Catherine Dixon, our budget analyst, Helen Parker, senior budget analyst, and Libby Stressman, our budget management assistant. And we are just missing one, Janet Northrup, who could not be with us this evening. The City of Chandler has earned the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, for 32 years. And we're recently notified that the fiscal year 2020-21 budget document makes it the 33rd consecutive year. This award reflects the commitment of staff in meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting. In order to receive the budget award, the city must satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. The guidelines are designed to assess how well an entity's budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operational guide, and a communication device. Budget documents must be rated proficient in all 4 categories to receive the award, and I'm happy to report Chandler's budget was rated outstanding in many of the areas. Additionally, I would be remiss if I did not also recognize the significant contributions by staff in all of our departments in the city to improve the budget document annually. We are thankful for everyone's contributions and congratulate the city and the budget team for this accomplishment. We're proud to have such a talented and dedicated team and celebrate Team Chandler tonight. Thank you. Smile.
Council, at this time, I'd like to call up representatives from our Human Relations Commission for a presentation on the results from the Diversity and Inclusion Survey. So welcome. The Unity Proclamation was issued in June and was a response to national unrest due to events happening in other states. And we use this in Chandler as an opportunity to be proactive through proclamation. I tasked our HRC to engage the members of our community to hear their concerns and to come back to council with recommendations that would benefit the quality of life, economic opportunity, and relationships with our community. So take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before we go into the Unity Proclamation and recommendation, also known as survey results, I do want to start by providing a background of the HRC, which established in the late 1990s due to the outrage of discrimination toward Latino Americans. During that time, the HRC Human Relations Commission was chaired by Mayor Harkey at that time, so I do aspire to be there someday. Now, today, there are 11 active members in the HRC Human Relations Commission who broadly represent the diverse demographic of this community within the city of Chandler, all who voted anonymously for today's recommendation. Now, to jump into the timeline of events, in June of 2020, Mayor Harkey and City Council did issue a Unity Proclamation, which tasked Chandler Human Relations Commission to engage with the community, which resulted in a survey. Now, shortly after, in July, the subcommittee developed, consisting of 3 active HRC members, myself, Commissioner Conaway, and Commissioner Begay. Now, in September, we did launch a survey, which was available to all resident and community members at that time. Right after, in October, we were astounded by the results and the feedback from all who are participated in the survey results. There were 665 residents who work in the city of Chandler who took the survey. Now that is huge in the short 21 days that the survey was out. So it's quite a few different responses. Majority of those that lived in the zip code area 85225. Now, there was a tie between residents who were 21 plus years established and those that were 6 to 10 years. Also, income level was 63%, resulting in about $76,000 in income annually. Now, we were able to find a consistent theme within the responses that went answered. Now, the question, what can the city of Chandler do to improve diversity and inclusion for all its residents? That was the number one question that was answered. And there was, again, a consistent theme of reflective responses. Some of the themed educated opportunities, LGBTQ, staffing leadership representation, community policing, educational and outreach, and expanding of events and locations, expand communication and marketing, and then other businesses, affordable housing, and faith groups. Now, I would like to welcome Commissioner Conaway to the podium to discuss our recommendation to Mayor and City Council.
Thank you, Lead Commissioner Bello, and thank you again, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak this evening. As Jacob mentioned, the survey was an outpouring of feedback from the community. It was the committee's privilege to really sift through the feedback, find the themes, and what we saw was really there was a cascade of items that really exceeded the scope, both of the commission and a lot of the existing departments. So what we came back with today was a recommendation that the city employ a diversity and inclusion consultant, really to address each of the areas that the survey outlined in terms of what residents wanted to see improved in the city. A lot of the comments that centered around education, how we help improve the experience of city staff, and really make us more competitive as we enter into the advanced stages of the year 2000, to really keep our identity forward in a brand of diversity and inclusion. We outlined 7 benefits of this consultant which really drive us to make the recommendation to you. One is consultants can come in and identify basically opportunities for best practices that the city doesn't know, blind spots, ways we can improve and enhance recruiting pipelines, which is one of the second benefits. Really revamp and maintain regular training for city staff. So we saw time and again in the comments in the survey, how does the city best reflect its service model? How does it best reflect the diversity of the community in which it operates? Diversity is a fact of Chandler's community. Inclusion is that choice. So when we look at how we can make the city more amenable to serving diverse populations, really wanted to look at deep diving what sort of training and experience the city staff receives. We learned through our investigation it was about a 4-hour training at the start of the career, and there isn't really a regular loop or a refresher on diversity and inclusion. As the city becomes more diverse, takes on new members and community members, we want to make sure that the city staff are given the best opportunity to provide best-in-class service. We also wanted them to collaborate with relevant stakeholders, not only within the city council, but in all the areas of the city's government. The city operates as a business, a social enterprise, so it has quite a few stakeholders that need to be appraised of this. Just like in business, and we'll walk through that here in a second, we need to make sure that the stakeholders have someone dedicated to this function. Every group within the Chandler city government benefits from diversity and inclusion, so really want to make that a primer for why it's beneficial to them. We also wanted to create enriched educational forums, town halls, and expand our cultural events. We saw time and again there was a great admiration for the cultural events that we had, and there was a desire to continue to see them expanded, both in scope for existing events and then how do we scope in new events in the future. We also wanted to see an enhanced network of communication within the Chandler schools and diversity education. Lots of comments directed towards the educational system, realizing that's out of scope for council. One of the ways we took it was there was an opportunity to advise CUSD and others what the people were saying in terms of residential feedback, and to create an open loop of communication to make sure diversity education was prioritized. Again, not something the council is actively involved in, but something that we can be advisors on for certain. And then really to evaluate necessary staffing, including potentially a diversity and inclusion officer, which reports back and is key to accomplishing any of the consultant's recommendations. Really, when the consultant is finished, we expect a report to be furnished to council and mayor that outlines what those gaps are, what sort of things can be done to enhance best practices. And we wanted to highlight, really, Chandler has always operated with fiscal conservatism and really operated itself as a business. It's a social enterprise, but a business nonetheless. We wanted to highlight the largest 10 organizations in Chandler have D&I directors or diversity and inclusion officers, except the city of Chandler. We also look at small and medium businesses that the Chandler Chamber represents. The Chandler Chamber of Commerce has had consistently for over 5 years an emphasis on diversity and inclusion. Members of all different business scopes and size see it as a benefit, and they see it as a resource in the city. So the business community has obviously prioritized it, keeping in line. We think it's time, given the city of Chandler stands out in those top 10 employers, to eventually look to that. But again, the recommendation for now is that of a consultant. And really, when we break down the overall economic benefit to the city, we have to also look at our competing neighbor cities. We have, Tempe, Scottsdale, and Phoenix all have a diversity and inclusion officer reporting within their city ranks that really helps prioritize that both at an economic level and then also from residents. We'll pause there.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Tyler and Jacob, for coming tonight. And we did have a great response from people invested in our community who took the survey. I know I took time to take the survey as well, and I thought the questions were thoughtful. I do want to thank the HRC for taking on this task during a challenging time and being thoughtful on how to engage our community. I know it took a lot of work to sift through all of those many responses, and I appreciate the time that you guys took to come forth with these thoughtful recommendations. We'll have budget session coming up, and I know that these items will be reviewed, that your recommendations and kind of find their way with the other priorities that our city has. And we will look forward to working with our staff and our neighborhood diversity to see what we can do. So I want to thank you all. And again, thank you for this study that you put together. So last, or not last, I've got two more people presenting tonight. The next two are related to Scott Brown and with 5G findings. Scott? And again, sir, you've got 3 minutes to come and state your name and address to start.
Scott Brown, I live at 395 East Ironwood Drive in Chandler. I will demonstrate in 3 minutes that Verizon, with their 173 or more encroachment permits on the rights of way with small wireless telecom facilities, are in violation of FCC guidelines, as they are now being built currently. Installed in our neighborhoods. The one in my neighborhood is found on a permit EPM 20-0419. The FCC rule which they violate is FCC rule found in Title 47 CFR Section 1.1307B1 Table 1, which states environmental evaluation is required if non-building mounted antennas have a height of greater than 10 meters, which is 32 feet 8 inches, and the total power of all channels, all three antennas, greater than 1,000 watts of electro-radiated power. Page 3 of this permit, which all Verizon permits in Chandler, should state that the towers are 30 feet overall height, and the antennas themselves are at a height of 23 feet 6 inches. Those antennas are equipped also on page 6 of the same report with an Ericsson Air 5331 5G NR antenna, 3 of them. Cumulatively, they all will emit more than 1,000 watts of electro-radiated power. So, it is important to note that the FCC will not be walking our sidewalks to regulate our rights of way to make sure they're in accordance with FCC standards. Verizon is currently self-regulating. This is a conflict of interest. Our city is frightened. Our city council is frightened to work on these things because of a law known as HB 2365, which probably should be taken down and will probably need to be taken down by the people because it appears that we're not able to. It's up to the citizens to hopefully, in tandem with the city and our state and county officials, to enforce these FCC guidelines because the FCC will not be here. HB 2365 is an unjust law and has frightened our cities, counties, and states from denying the telecom companies their permits, whose authorities will cause us all three entities we talked about, to lose funding. So we've all said that our hands are tied. However, the public rights of way exist for the citizens and those who live among the public rights of way, not as a bargaining chip for bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., who will get lobbied and make lots of money from Verizon and all the telecom. Also, according to FCC Order 18-111, paragraph 157, the city of Chandler, during a national emergency, can indeed pass a moratorium on the telecommunications service. I urge our city council to deny and stop all related cell phone permits until applicants will comply with the aforementioned FCC guideline found on table 47 CFR section 1.1307B1, table 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And next, Corey Wagner.
Mayor, did you want to wait till the second one to get questions from staff?
Let's let them both speak.
And then we'll get questions. Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name's Carrie Wagner. I live at 2305 East Foley. Thanks for having me back. I attest and affirm the following statements are true, accurate, and within my personal knowledge. We spoke to several of you individually following the October City Council meeting when Scott and I last spoke about densified 4G, 5G wireless telecom facilities being constructed in Chandler's public rights of way. It seemed that you agreed with densified 4G is negatively affecting the community, harming public safety, devaluing our properties, wiping out our privacy, and destroying our pollinators. These wireless antennas are simply too powerful, and they are being installed too close to the ground and too close to our homes. Several of you told us in October that you feel that you have been backed into a corner by the state and federal legislatures and regulators, but I'm here to tell you that you can thread the needle, locally regulate densified 4G, 5G, and stay out of court. It's time to look together at the bigger picture, debunk the wireless industry propaganda, and stand our ground to preserve Chandler's local values. The following are forward-thinking solutions that return the power back to our local city council members. Here's what we can do together. Number one, first create a committee of 10, the We Want It Committee. An August group comprised of selected city council members, city staff, and public wireless industry representatives, and importantly, third-party RF EMR experts not employed by the wireless industry. This subcommittee will create solutions to the problems of 4G, 5G densified in Chandler. We have a scheduled Zoom meeting that's 30 minutes next week on Wednesday at 2 to explore how we can form this We Want It committee. Today, you are each invited to participate in this first step. Second, we can finalize and pass 3 simple local ordinances that can be adapted from what has already been written at ourtownourchoice.org, posted in the solutions menu. Ordinance M for moratorium, Ordinance VHP for local regulations of WTFs, vertical, horizontal, and power parameters. And the best one, the We Want It ordinance, the written evidence. Wireless antennas needs test in the telecommunication ordinance. Come to the Zoom meeting for details or check the website. Not right now, but after we finish speaking. Finally, in Chandler, we can take positive steps to simultaneously provide sufficient telecommunications service and protect the quiet enjoyment of our streets. We can thread the needle to deliver actual public safety in Chandler despite the 1996 FCC RFMPE guideline, despite existing federal and state telecom laws, and despite the old tire myth that your hands are tied. According to the county's top telecom attorney, Andrew Cabanelli, city council members' hands are most certainly not tied. Perhaps one of 10 fingers might be partially tied, the left pinky, but 9 free fingers are enough to get the job done. You see, compliance with the FCC RFMPE guidelines does not ensure public safety. There is real evidence now, not just unfounded worries about the future. People living next to these antennas are getting sick in a matter of weeks, in immediate neurological, cardiac, and immune system problems.
Thank you, Corey.
Thanks.
Councilmember Orlando, you had a question?
Mayor, I know you had the subcommittee, and I read the meeting reports there on the subcommittee. I appreciate the staff doing that and some of the residents attending it, but can staff address this issue of the 30-foot height, and what does that mean, and the wattage versus 2 versus 3?
Mayor, I'm concerned about having a broader discussion
on this item because it's put under scheduled appearances, which really tells the public that we're having somebody give a report to the council. If we want to have that broader discussion, I would prefer that we come back in a more properly agendized item.
So, but my understanding is part of scheduled is that council can ask questions, so.
Yeah.
Mayor, they absolutely, you
Okay,
can.
so I have a question. What is the status of the FCC 30-foot, 2-foot pole, and we're at 28, and the wattage? Have we looked at that from a legal standpoint? Have we looked at that from a staff? I mean, I'm trying to figure out, have we done our due diligence on that type of activity? And if we
Mayor?
have, that's great, you know.
Councilmember Orlando, I'm going to ask Derek Horn, Development Services Director, and Dennis Oust, who works in our right-of-way management for these utilities, to try to address your questions. If we do not have the answers, we will definitely get back to you.
That's fair.
Thank you, City Manager. Thank you, Mayor, Councilman Orlando. I have Dennis Ost with me today. He can address the technical questions of this, but I do want to say in a broad sense that we'd be happy to do a more thorough report on this, but we do issue our construction permits after a very thorough review with federal, state, and local requirements. Dennis, you can answer the specific question.
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, the height requirement that they're looking at specifically is not necessarily applied to these specific projects. The small wireless facilities are governed by the FCC requirements. They're also governed by state and local laws. The current HB 2365 state law allows these to be up to 50 feet in height for certain requirements. There's a number of different factors that go into it that we look into during the plan review process. Everything that we've reviewed, these are in compliance with those. As far as the FCC's specific requirements, they're in compliance with those as well.
So maybe there's a communication disconnect here, and I'm just trying to figure out, trying to bridge that, okay? We have the FCC compliance, and I don't know, it's the first time hearing the 30 dash, whatever the case may be, saying that they must be above 32 feet and they can't emit no more than 1,000 watts. Again, this is brand new to me as far as the details here. The current poles are at 30 feet, and what I'm hearing the residents say, it's less than the 32 feet that the FCC recommends. So what law or what activity is giving us the ability to, usurp or get around that 32 feet? That's what I'm asking, I guess. Does that make sense now?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, my understanding from working with the industry on this is a lot of these laws are geared towards different types of communications towers. And these small wireless facilities fall outside of what you would consider a traditional macro tower, which meet a lot of those requirements. They have smaller size requirements, they have different height requirements that they're allowed under, and they have different power wattage requirements.
So we got that from the industry versus the FCC or the laws. And I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay, let me do it this way. I'd like staff to go back and look at this particular question and let me know what prohibits us as a community from not having them do the 32 feet or whatever the case may be for a little bit more maximum safety. I think that's a fair thing to ask. Okay. And then as far as putting together a subcommittee, again, I'll be at the Wednesday meeting at 2 o'clock. Send me an email. I'll be delighted to listen to what you have to say and figure this out and continue the dialogue going. I think that's fair to continue the dialogue. I have talked to other members of other cities, as I've indicated to you on the phone last week. And there's concern from other members of other council members from other cities in this regard to this. So again, it may come down to, now we're having a meeting with our legislative representatives this week. And that's one of the issues I'm going to be talking to them about is how do we look at this issue one more time and figure out what we could do to help our community be more in charge and more control of what goes in our community. So, I mean, you just saw planning and zoning tonight about apartment complex or whatever the case may be, whether it's waterworks or something. We need the control. And we may still approve that, don't get me wrong, but at least we're the ones that's approving that with your input. So that's where I'm on this issue. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. And, I know that I've been paying attention. I was hoping maybe, Ryan, and you don't have to come up, but I'd love to get a report, I started to read that New Hampshire ruling that happened recently. I'd like to see maybe a layman's review of that. If you wouldn't mind putting something like that together for mayor and council, I'd appreciate that. The other thing I was going to add is that, I'm just becoming aware of the 5G issue. I know that we want that speed. I know we want that technology, but what I am genuinely concerned about is whether or not there is a health issue with these being close to homes, and why it has to be near homes, why it can't be moved to less dense areas or things like that. I haven't been able to adequately find that information between everything we were working on tonight. I just haven't done that research, but I'd love to get some more information about that. I can only look through the lens of what I know in my life, and that's, creating awareness and then hopefully understanding things a little bit more. These conversations should continue to happen. We don't need to just shut it down. We can talk about this every meeting if we need to, within reason, Mayor. But if there is a safety issue, or if there is egregious encroachment on homes that are nearby by 5G and we don't know the story behind it, let's do some more homework. And I don't care if there's legislation in place. That's why we live in a republic. We can change it. But it starts at the grassroots, and we communicate and we'll figure it out. And if we get to a point where we hit a dead end, then we go around that dead end. Or if we get information that affirms that 5G is safe, then we deal with that too. So I'd just like to continue the conversation, get some more information, Ryan, and support the community in their actions. And we've got nothing to lose by doing that. We've got everything to gain. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Thank you. Council, next on our agenda is items called in from the study session. We've got a good handful. Item number 4, Councilmember Orlando.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick questions on this one. The tank farm, who's got this? Okay. So they want to expand the number of tanks they have, the storage facility. In fact, some of them may be larger than what they're doing today. I guess my questions are, how long they've been operating, and they have a safe record here, and how do we inspect these?
Yep. Good evening,
I
Mayor.
guess 3 questions. I apologize if I said 2, didn't I?
No worries. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ben Sedacedes. I am the case planner that's associated with this. Please let me know if I don't answer all your questions. But the first original, so this has been going on for a while. The first use permit was obtained back in 1989. So, and then I believe your second question was if they are in compliance and if there has been any concerns with how the business has been operating, correct?
Yes, any safety violation, things like that.
Correct. So from what staff is aware, there has been no issues with the operation of the business itself. They've met all the requirements.
Okay. And then how do we inspect them?
So kind of 2 questions. No, not 2 questions, but 2 answers to that one. So the first one is when the tanks do go in, the building division does go out and they have to go through the building division to install those tanks themselves. And then on an annual basis, the fire division does go out and conduct inspections as well.
So are these upright tanks or underground tanks?
They're up above the ground.
Okay, so there's contamination, I guess guards around these tanks as well?
Correct. So there's like almost like a sink where the
Right, collar or
contamination.
something. Okay, good. All right, thank you, Mayor. I feel more comfortable. Thanks.
All right. Any additional comments? Yeah. Thank you for the good
Thank you.
pictures in the on this one and the diagrams too that showed those. So, item number 7, Councilmember Orlando.
More technology, huh? Don't sound so excited about it. The same Pete would be jumping up and down right now because he loves technology, right?
I am.
I know you are.
Looking forward to it.
I could tell to the mask you're just
Smile on my eyes.
Hey, so really, I know this is just buying security equipment for existing and upgrades, things like that.
Yes, sir.
But I think the 2 biggest things here I want to make sure we're clear on, is this going for the new garages?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Orlando, yes, it is. This is allows us to purchase equipment and surveillance equipment for both Oregon Street and Overstreet.
Excellent. And that's, I know Councilmember Rowe, he's on the DCC board. That's been an issue that has been raised several times, as well as currently being raised about security and safety in those areas. So I appreciate it. How long before we get these in?
With approval tonight, we'll proceed immediately, and we're hoping that it will be within the next few months will be complete.
And then the police department, they have access to the videos and things like that as well?
Yes, sir. I had a briefing today with the chief, and we discussed that very subject.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Item number 21, thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to get some background on this. Can you give me I just want to get a report real quick on what the state advised us to do and why the state was weighing in on this particular item. And is the applicant for the liquor license here? For Antonio Franco Harris? Is he here?
No.
Okay. Can anybody from staff report on why is it commonplace for the state to advise the city on how to vote on a particular ordinance?
Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, Dawn Lang, Management Services Director, is prepared to answer all questions.
All questions.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, I will answer a few, but I'm also going to rely on Danielle Wells, our Revenue and Tax Manager. So we work in partnership with the Department of Liquor, and in this case, there's a lot of history on this application and location. So we really worked in concert with them. We worked with the police department. The police department also consults with the Department of Liquor, and they simply advised us in moving forward with a no recommendation. And really, it has to do with the significant history. So I'm going to ask Danielle Wells, our Revenue and Tax Manager, to come forward and provide some context behind this. I think it will help everyone in understanding why we're recommending it, because it is unusual to go forward with a no recommendation from staff. So, Danielle.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me through this? No. No? Okay. All right. Max James Investments, LLC was the prior owner of Rick's Pub and Grub. They held a Series 12 restaurant liquor license at this location until September 5th, 2020, when it was suspended by the Department of Liquor Licenses and Control, and a closure notice was issued by the Arizona Department of Health for violations related to COVID. The current applicant, Anthony Harris, was listed as one of the owners during the investigation by the Department of Liquor Licenses and Control on September 5th, 2020. Prior to September 5th, the Chandler Police Department had multiple calls for service to this establishment with ownership, operation, and interest from both Anthony Harris and Max James Investments, LLC on several occasions ranging from March 25th to September 5th regarding the COVID violation complaints from citizens. On September 21st, after the closure of the business, a new application for the Series 12 restaurant liquor license was received at the City of Chandler. This was the first time listing Anthony Harris as the applicant and individual owner. Staff reviewed this information and discussed with the applicant the discrepancy and confusion with the ownership. Although Mr. Harris was not listed as owner on the previous application, after some discussion, Anthony Harris stated he's been operating the establishment, is in the process of transferring that ownership of the establishment, and has maintained some financial interest in the business. The Department of Liquor Licenses and Control advised the city could move forward with the local governing body review of this application listing Anthony Harris as the applicant and individual owner at this time. A Series 12 restaurant liquor license requires the business to maintain 40% of the gross receipts from food. An audit by the Department of Liquor License and Control on the prior owner resulted in the establishment failing to derive 40% of the gross income from food, therefore not meeting the restaurant license requirements. They were required to surrender the license by October of 2019, but it was not surrendered. So at the time of the incident on September 5th, 2020, they should not have had a liquor license at the establishment. The current applicant, Anthony Harris, has been advised by the Department of Liquor License and Control that this business has historically been operating more like a bar Series 6 license rather than the Series 12 restaurant license, and had been given the opportunity to withdraw and reapply with the Series 6 bar. After review and discussion with the applicant, he would request the city move forward with the application as a Series 12 restaurant liquor license. The Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control advised they would be protesting the license on the basis of the license type being applied for and other violations as they relate to COVID. In summary, it is the responsibility of the applicant to prove that they're reliable, capable, and qualified, and the issuance of the license is in the best interest of the community. The police department recommendation was not for approval or denial, as there is apprehension to approve due to the repeated visits to the establishment for COVID-19 violation complaints, and with education, and ultimately with the suspension of the liquor license and closure notice on September 5th. However, this applicant has additional matters with the Department of Liquor for the appropriate series type resulting from the audit that the city was not a part of. That is why the city is recommending in this unusual, unique case to no recommendation be given to the Department of Liquor License and Control. This unique option would allow the applicant to move forward and directly work on the validity of the Series 12 restaurant liquor license and the COVID violations. A no recommendation is a neutral recommendation and excludes the city from participating in the liquor board hearing. And with that, I can take some questions.
Thank you. That's a great presentation. And it makes sense now. So our vote or our non-vote actually allows the applicant to go directly to the state because he needs a different license than what he's asking for. So we would be recommending a license that he's applying for that the state needs to work with him to get a 6 because he's not selling enough food. Is that correct?
Mayor.
Or a 7?
Yeah. Council member, he actually will be working with the Department of Liquor License and Control on either establishing that he can maintain a Series 12 with different, criteria and that kind of thing. So that's what his presentation will be for Department of Liquor Control.
Okay, I appreciate that update, and it always concerns me when the state is like giving us direction on what we can, and it's like we're talking about that. It's like, what do we sit here for if they're just going to tell us what we have to do? So local control matters, and that's why I asked the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is item number 24. I believe Leah Powell with a briefing, and Councilmember Stewart, you had some questions. Councilmember Orlando asked for a briefing. Stephen or no?
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. So item 24 is a proposed property maintenance ordinance revision to that. It's actually a repeal and replace of the existing ordinance. Having property maintenance codes in the city of Chandler is nothing new. They've existed for decades, and the current codes that exist now have not been updated since 2007. What happened is we undertook a comprehensive review, and that was brought forward by both resident feedback. We often get residents that are concerned that they have difficulties understanding the code and trying to make it into a more comprehensible code. And also it was a council area of interest as well. So this new code incorporates not only valley-wide best practices, but it's also based on international property maintenance codes and codes throughout the country, really, and basically brought into one comprehensive code that has been tailored to the city of Chandler. It's intended to both deal with the current conditions as well as the long-term sustainability of neighborhoods. And that's important because when we're talking about code changes, we need to be aware of both how things are right now
as well as where things could be at some point. For example, back in the recession when we had the issues with housing market and vacancies in properties like that, we had to be prepared for something like that. It could eventually happen in the future as well. So some of the advantages of this new code, it is more concise and easier to understand. So when we're interacting with the public, and they oftentimes will say, well, where does the code, does it say this? This new code actually allows us to more easily point to and say a specific section, whereas our current code can be very difficult to follow and difficult to understand. So therefore, it increases transparency by having this type of code that is easier for the public to navigate. It also reduces abatement fees, and I'll talk about that in a bit here. It also significantly reduces the amount of time for a abatement to happen. Abatements are basically an administrative action when we have to resolve a violation because of a vacant property or other issues, and I'll get into that again here in a little bit. And it also aligns with the strategic initiatives to the framework from the council and the goal of having well-maintained and vibrant neighborhoods. So as far as the actual code changes, some of the significant code changes with it, or the significant parts of this code change are not only being, again, more concise and transparent, but from a practical standpoint, really the code actually will operate much in the same way that it operates now. Again, it just makes it more concise, with the exception of a few of these significant changes. One of those changes is that the height requirements of vegetation over streets and sidewalks and alleys will change. So currently over streets and alleys, it is a requirement to keep the trees and shrubs 13.5 feet above a street, and that's going to increase to 15 feet, and over sidewalks from 7 feet to 8 feet. In addition, the code will prohibit dirt yards, and those would be the yards that would be visible from the public right-of-way, so the front and side yards, those that are visible. Our current code addresses that now, and we do address those issues currently. But the way that it reads is it talks about it has to be a deteriorated yard, and that oftentimes can be difficult to prove. We have to be able to show that the yard was landscaped at one time and has now deteriorated to dirt, whereas the new ordinance simply would just not allow having dirt yards. And then it also adds a requirement for fences, screening walls, and retaining walls to be uniform and compatible. And the intention behind that is right now it only deals with the walls and fences being deteriorated. So we want to make sure that if we have a fence that we're saying needs to be replaced, we want to have it replaced like for like. In other words, if you had a block wall, you need to repair that deteriorated wall with a block wall rather than maybe a fence wall or a wooden fence. It also deals with some vehicle regulations. So vehicles for sale. So at a residential property, it would allow for the display of one vehicle for sale at a time, and would require that the vehicle be retitled to the owner or the occupant of the property, and that there be no more than 3 vehicles displayed for sale in a calendar year. And again, that is an attempt to make sure that particularly properties that might front some main arterials, that they don't have a regular ongoing basis of vehicle sales from those properties. It also does require that that vehicle covers be made exclusively for covering vehicles. We oftentimes will see vehicles covered with tarps and bed liners and cardboard, all types of things. And again, from an aesthetic standpoint, we're wanting those to be simply covers that are made for car covering. And then it also provides the code enforcement with its own parking code for parking on unapproved surface. So currently it's challenging then that we have to, the parking on unapproved surface is actually a zoning ordinance. In order for us to address that, if we were to address it strictly as a zoning violation, it actually would have to be a criminal charge. Obviously, we don't want to do that. We want to, if we had to go into court on that situation, we want to be able to do it from a civil citation. That actually involves us going in a roundabout way and declaring it a public nuisance. Hence, as I just discussed, the very confusing way that we have to explain this to a resident. It can be difficult. So vacant structures and unsecured structures are certainly problematic for a neighborhood when there are people that are frequenting that property that don't belong there. So currently, when we have those situations, it can be challenging for PD to address that because PD needs to have somebody who's willing to trespass the individuals. And in these situations, there's typically no owner available to authorize that trespassing charge. So under the new ordinance, it adds the ability to condemn an unsafe structure prohibiting entry, which provides PD with a mechanism to address that unauthorized entry where there might be things taking place that we don't want to be happening. It does not allow the city to condemn and take property. It is simply to prevent unauthorized entry to unsafe structures. The new code also adds the ability to require demolition of dilapidated structures that are damaged beyond repair. And it adds the ability to more effectively address building without a permit cases. So when somebody's, say, adding a carport or such, we will get involved in that, and we issue this allows us to directly have our own code to issue a stop work order requiring them to get a permit and work with the building department on that. All of these areas are, it's set out in the code that is working in conjunction with the building official and or the fire marshal. So it would not simply be our area that would be condemning properties or deciding that a property need to be, or that a structure need to be demoed. It'd be in conjunction with the other divisions as well and these other entities to come to the same conclusion. So now we're going to talk about our abatement process. I don't expect you to read this whole thing. That what the point of this slide was to demonstrate this administrative action. It's used when there is a vacant property and the city needs to take action through a contractor to resolve that violation. We will go through a series of process, and this is outlined in state law as well as our current city code. We go through that process, we bill the property owner and place a lien on the property if it's not paid. Under our current code, that process has many steps, and it's taking well over 100 days typically to process. And that's often very problematic for our neighborhood where the property is located, such as the unauthorized entry that I talked about earlier, as well as maybe overgrown vegetation, trash and debris, and other issues that are related to vacant properties. Under the new ordinance, this would remove the unnecessary and additional steps, and it would simply be mirroring the state statute and the process that's laid out in that statute. And this would streamline the process and reduce the time to process an abatement of violations at a vacant property from over 100 days right now to just about 60 days, about 62 days. So obviously providing faster relief for neighborhoods when those situations exist. We're also recommending reducing the fees associated with abatements. So currently our average cost of an abatement is about $500. Our current code, the way it's laid out, adds an additional $350 in fees, making that total bill $850. Under this new code, we would charge a 25% administrative fee, so an average abatement cost of $500 would result in a total bill of $625. We feel that adding the abatement fee as a percentage rather than the way that it's laid out now is more fair and equitable, particularly because most of the time our abatement cost is relatively low. Okay, now we're going to talk about civil citations. As you can see from the slide, we have very few cases. In fact, less than 1% of our cases result in a resident receiving a citation to appear in municipal court. The vast majority of our cases are resolved voluntarily. And you can see in 2017, only 30 citations were issued, 26 were issued in 2018, and only 12 in 2019. This is a couple of things. First of all, we require that every citation is reviewed by a supervisor before being issued, and that our inspectors understand the why before the citation is being issued. In other words, why are they not complying? Are they not complying because they have a financial hardship? Are they not complying because they don't agree? What is the reason for the non-compliance? And only then do we actually issue a citation once we understand that why as best as possible. After every effort has been exhausted to achieve voluntary compliance, then a civil citation may be issued. As you may recall, code enforcement and neighborhood programs are both under Neighborhood Preservation Division. One of the ways that we're able to keep our number of our civil citations to a minimum is by helping those in need to resolve property violations. Code enforcement and neighborhood programs work closely together to solve problems. Since 2017, 150 households have received assistance through our community volunteer partnerships. And these are individuals that maybe are elderly, with disability, experiencing hardship, and even during COVID times, we've had provided assistance with some of the violations out there. So one of the other changes we're looking at is currently someone who receives a civil citation can be fined a maximum of $500. Typically, the court is imposing fines somewhere between nothing, or $200. And generally it's generally more around the lower end of that. What we're proposing is to have a set fine schedule of $250 for the first violation within a 24-month period, $500 for the second violation, a 24-month period, and $750 for the third, an additional violation in a 24-month period. Please understand that these time periods are based on the date of the civil citation to appear in court. So in each case, a resident would have to have a citation actually be issued to go to court, and those time periods be met in order for that to increase. So therefore, it's unlikely, frankly, that we would probably go anywhere past their initial fine of $250 for the most part. Just a little bit of a timeline. So this originally was brought to Council Subcommittee on October 12th. We did conduct public outreach activities, and we had 67 public comments that are in your packet. I apologize, there's an error on the date there. The Neighborhood Advisory Committee briefing took place on October 26th, not in November. And October 26th, when we presented this to the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, we had a unanimous vote of yes to approve it the way it was presented. We're here today, obviously, on the 7th. We plan to bring it back next month for final adoption, and then they would become effective 30 days after that. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. So, great presentation. I know you put a lot of work into this, Stephen. And I sat on that subcommittee and with Councilmember Orlando and Councilmember Wong, and we talked at length about the 65 pages of ordinance changes. And it's a lot. There's a lot of code changes in here that, I'll be frank, are a little bit overwhelming. Is this serve as the public hearing for this? I know we did some outreach on Facebook and we had a subcommittee meeting. You guys, did you give this same presentation to NAC?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay, so we didn't get into the details of the ordinance. We just talked about just the overall scope, which was, you mentioned that you had council interest. When did that council interest start? And who did it come from?
Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, the council interest came from various council members over the time period. And we had Councilmember Orlando. I know Councilmember Rowe I had talked about at times making some changes. So it's been through various discussions with council anecdotally.
Yeah,
And I add mine to that too.
And Councilman, yeah.
And we had talked, and I know I talked to Terry and talked to the mayor and council member about where those specific issues might be. Like it's changing some of the criminal offenses to petty offenses, right? That was one of the things that I think is important. There's a lot of good in these code changes, but there is a lot in these code changes that you're asking for a up or down when there are specific things in these ordinance changes that I think could be a little egregious. I'm not really worried about today and these ordinance changes with the culture that we have in this community, which is help first, right? Let's find a volunteer organization to help trim trees for a fixed income family over 65 that can't get on a ladder and do that, right? These are the impacts that we're creating. We're costing our neighbors money, and we're going to cost ourselves money or effort when these changes go into effect. And I'm not worried about us. We're going to do what we have to do to help our community be viable and move forward. What I'm worried about is 20 years from now, if you don't have the same empathetic council and the same empathetic staff, and the culture of the community has changed, and these ordinances are in place, and we just vote up or down 65 pages of ordinances. I can go into each one of these: trees, yards, dirt yards. Some people can't afford to put in grass. How are we going to manage that? And what you're saying is if you walk down the path, petty offense doesn't get paid, then you go to court, it turns into more fines, and you turn into something else, it becomes a lien on your property, then eventually becomes condemnation. That's my biggest concern, and it could happen, just one house. But our job is to protect the life and protect the property owner's valuation and their homes, and that's what our job is here to sit. So while it all seems great, and I'm sure 99% of it is, but there's one bad grape in this bunch, and I don't want to just vote up with that one bad grape in there without knowing more details about each one of these ordinances. So, we're not making motions tonight, but that's my 2 cents. And so unless something changes and I can get into the weeds on this in the next 3 days, which probably won't happen, I can't support this just broad sweeping 65 pages of ordinance changes. I just don't think it's right for our community right now. Thank you.
So is it, again, as someone who lives in a neighborhood where several of those pictures could have been taken, literally on my own street, I also look at the property owners who live next to these, who have made calls and have asked for help. And will this help the rest of the neighborhood that will have folks that have not shown an interest in their property?
Yes, Mayor. So the changes that we're proposing, again, the one thing to keep in mind is most of what we do now will not change. So some of the things that we're talking about doing here, for example, the condemning a property. Just to be clear, again, we're not condemning a property to take a property. We're condemning a property in order to prevent unauthorized entry, and that's one of the challenges. And again, you have to really think back to 2008 and the housing crisis, and when properties were vacant, and we were going through a lot of those issues where properties would remain vacant for some period of time, and you'd have individuals that would come in there and start doing things they shouldn't be doing. There was challenges then, and it wasn't just here in Chandler, it was throughout the valley and throughout the state. So this is actually, again, one of those best practices to put into place, because we don't want that to happen again, but we don't know at some point, are we going to be in a situation where you have an abundance of vacant properties and we're trying to address them very quickly and give relief to the neighborhoods. And again, that abatement process that we're talking about provides faster relief. The ability to post a property is unsafe to occupy, which is really what we're talking about when we're talking about the condemned, is we're saying it's unsafe to occupy. And that's only to the extent until the owner, a new owner or whatever takes place with that property, returns back over again, where we're not wanting to keep out individuals that could be doing things in there we don't want. So it definitely provides relief, not only in the short term now, as far as being able to address things more easily and provide a more concise code to the residents that they can understand better, hopefully. The reality is most people will never really understand it. I mean, I have a 20-year career of this, so I know it better than obviously most people will, and probably more than they should. I wouldn't expect people to, but the goal of this really is to make it to where when somebody says, well, I don't understand why I have to do this, where does it say it? This code is laid out in a much more concise and more transparent manner than our current code. But again, understand that our current code and these things that we're asking for, in a lot of ways, again, doesn't necessarily change a lot, but it does help in a lot of areas as well, the ones that I specifically pointed out.
Thank you. Councilmember Orlando.
Yeah, I think the first time we've talked about code adjustment was at our council retreat, which is almost 2 years ago. That was a subject, a topic in that council retreat, quality of life. I can't remember exactly, but I remember if you go back, you'll see that. So it's been a discussion over the last 2 years. It's been a discussion with the NAC, because if you get those meetings, you'll see they've discussed those issues. Been discussion with the residents, been discussion of homeowners. So it's not just one or two. This has been percolating for a couple of years now. 2007 was the last time it was looked at. That was 13 years ago. I was there. Okay, I'm sorry, but I was there. And at that time, we adjusted the codes, what we thought was the right interest for our city. 13 years from now, maybe you might be here or somebody else will be here. You'll be looking at this and adjusting it again. I don't vote on something, I vote on something that today could help us improve today. Tomorrow's council, I leave that to them, because I just try to do the best I could today for today's council, today's citizens. Tomorrow's councils will do the best what they feel for their citizens and their objectives at the time. So I can't look at same to the marijuana law we just talked about. That's been looked at for the third time now, maybe the fourth time. And I have no problem looking at these things a fourth time, a fifth time. So they're evolutionary. This makes it cleaner, quicker, to get these neighborhoods cleaned up, to help the neighbors clean their neighborhoods up. That's all we're doing here. We're giving them another tool in their toolbox to go after some of the bad actors. And that's what this issue is, the bad actors. Whether they're homeowners, renters, or rentees, they're the bad actors that's rooting for the entire neighborhood. And we have to clean this up. We can't let this go any longer. I think this maintenance issue is we have to say enough's enough. Let's get these homes fixed up. Let's help them out with the projects the mayor talked about. Mayor's been very instrumental in some of these issues, as you know, and so a lot of us here. Let's help them out the best we could. Give them grants. We talked about that at our subcommittee meeting. Give them grants to do that. Neighborhood advisory. There's things we could do to help clean it. That's fine. But for those bad actors that really don't care, this is what that's for them. And that's how I look at this program. So not punitive, working with the neighborhoods to clean the neighborhoods up, but we'll take that 3%, that 2%, whatever that case may be, that don't want to comply with making their neighborhood a better. Councilmember Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the work on this. What I do like is if we don't support this, it's going to be what it is. If we do support it, then we are going to see some reductions in fees. It sounds like it is an awful lot to digest. If we are to pass this, you would certainly sit down and meet with any one of us and trying to dissect specific codes that might be of a concern, and then work with legal to try and change those and update those. True?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Rowe, that's absolutely correct. I'd be happy to sit down with anybody and bring you into my world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is something that needed changing. Our codes, our city codes, they need a hard look, but it is such a huge thing to really wrap your hands around. And so
sure.
I commend you for trying to get it. Well, you've got it here, so let's go from there. But I think there's always a chance for continuous improvement. And if we can, if there are concerns from citizens or council members, we can come to you and we can work and improve that.
Absolutely.
So, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Final thoughts here. So update codes, yes. Help our neighbors, yes. 65 pages of ordinances that not a single person on this dais can tell you what's in it. When I asked staff for a side-by-side comparison of what it was and what it's going to be, I got something like that on Friday, and I haven't had a chance to really dive into it. 65 pages, we've got a lot going on. That's my concern, right? We don't pass ordinances and then circle back and see what's in it. We've had that example happen to us a few years back federally. We take the time to do public hearings. We look at ordinances one by one, and we make decisions based on those changes. Now, updating code is a whole different story. You can section that off. We're going to update some verbiage. We're going to change some definitions. Love it. But when you start changing the punitive part of it, which is, and I'm not directing this at you, Stephen, because you did a great job.
Thank you.
It's more probably directed this way. That's not how you're supposed to run a municipal government, and that's not how you're supposed to govern. You're supposed to listen to the community, give them the opportunity to weigh in. And so just because we think something should happen up here as it relates to punitive damages for an ordinance, that's not how you're supposed to do it. And I'll just leave it at that. We don't have to discuss it, but I'll probably end up voting no on this, only because it's just too much in one particular ordinance change, and it should be parsed out. Thank you.
Council, any additional? So, I did want to make, I think the original let's pull together idea, actually, I think Leah Powell coined that name for that program. So kudos to Leah Powell, and I'm excited to see that it's still going and still helping residents. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our questions by council is items number 25 and 29. Councilmember Stewart.
Oh, you know what? I got my answers for those. It's almost, was it after 9? I got my answers.
Great. I'm excited about that. Item number 41, Councilmember Stewart.
I'm good.
Woo! That concludes questions. Council, was there any other questions you had for staff on our agenda? All right, seeing none, that concludes our study session.